Committee Room 21. Signed. 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 Committee Room 30. 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 Signed. Committee Room 30, 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 Committee Room 30, signed. 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 Committee Room 30, Committee Room 30, Sound. 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 Committee Room 30.
Okay, good morning and welcome to today's meeting for the Committee for the Economy. As always, members, this meeting will be recorded and broadcast throughout Parliament buildings and online. We are joined online today by Emma Sheeran, and in the room Diana Armstrong, Jonathan Buckley, Gary Middleton, David Honeyford, Kate Nicholl and myself. We'll take apologies just from Sinead McLaughlin. Item 2, members' declarations of interest. Members have any declarations of interest they wish to make? None. We then move on to item 3.1. So at item 3.1, members, the committee met informally with the UER on the 1st of October and a summary note has been circulated by the clerk. Members content that that's true and accurate reflection of discussions? Okay, following on that, members, on some of the evidence we received, it may be prudent for the committee to invite the owners of Kilroot to provide an evidence session to the committee, but happy to have discussions at this stage. David?
Absolutely agree. Totally agree. I think we should bring them
members
in.
Content with that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Item 4, members, is draft minutes at page 7 or your pack. Members content I sign those as a true and accurate reflection. Yep. Agreed. Are there any matters arising from those? If not, let's move straight to item 6, which is our first oral session. The committee will now receive evidence from the department in respect of the RHI closure of the non-domestic scheme bill and related consultation. Can I refer members to the clerk's covering note at page 19, tabled papers from the department, a suggested revised timeline for the anticipated committee stage, also in table pack, the publication version of the RHI consultation document at page 36, 2024 statistics and a timeline of events. Can I welcome Sarah Brady, who's Director of Energy Operations at the department, who will be well known to the committee, and Alan Smith, who is the officer lead for RHI Closure. Congratulations on this excellent appointment, Alan. I'm sure you're very excited to take up this role. And with that, I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to appear today to discuss the proposal for closure of the RHI non-domestic renewable heat incentive scheme. The Department is progressing legislation to formally close the scheme. Following initial agreement from the Executive in July 2024, which identified closure as the preferred option, and then a subsequent Executive agreement last month that we should bring forward primary legislation. The primary principle in our approach is to balance fairness to the participants with protecting the public purse and ensuring value for money for taxpayers. As part of the closure process, the Department is bringing forward primary legislation, the RHI Closure Non-Domestic Scheme Bill. The bill is purely enabling in its form. It provides the Department with the power to formally close the scheme, and then any detail behind that will be in the regulations. So we would then be establishing a framework for legacy payments to participants. The bill includes provisions to ensure a smooth transition for participants. This includes a clause which will allow certain regulations to apply to a period that existed just before the bill came into operation, and that's there to ensure continuity and fairness to the accredited participants as they transition into the new arrangements. The bill itself is technical in nature. It doesn't actually directly impact participants or really do anything in and of itself other than give powers, and that's why the public consultation is not proposed for the bill. The public consultation, which we are currently undergoing, is on the policy proposals, which will close the scheme through regulations. The proposed approach involves transitioning from quarterly meter payments into closure payments, annual closure payments. The annual closure payments that each individual participant will receive will be based on historic usage from the period 2017 to 2019. The closure payments will continue until the end of each participant's original 20-year accreditation period, and that is provided that the installations in question remain in use. A tariff uplift is also being progressed we would hope to bring forward ahead of winter 2025. The rates of the tariff uplift that will be proposed will be aligned to the calculation of the closure payments. We are committed to ensuring a fair closure, and I welcome the scrutiny of the committee and look forward to addressing any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Sarah. Alan, anything you're content? No,
I'm
no
content
problems with that. Sarah, thank you very much for this, and can I thank officials for their work on this. Just in terms of reading your briefing and the bill, so the bill says RHI closure, but it's not really RHI closure, is it?
It is RHI closure. It's a drawing of a line under the old RHI as it was known, but the participants in the scheme have Article 1, Protocol 1 of the Human Rights Act rights to receive payments. So what we could have done was paid them a single closure payment, which was what was consulted on previously, but we examined it and we looked at it, and we felt that the fairest and best value for money thing to do would be to make the closure payment annually. So it's a legacy payment that will be made annually, provided that the installation remains in use. If the installation stops being used, then the payments stop.
Yeah. The scheme has been closed to new applicants since 2017, and anyone that entered in and got the accreditation for 20 years will continue to get that payment. So it's a continuation of payments for people rather than a closure, because we've already been closed to new applicants.
It's a transitioning to legacy arrangements for the participants.
Okay, and then I just want to have a look at a couple of other issues. So could you just talk to the cost of the proposed regulations?
Yeah, the cost of closure will be actually in and around the same as it would have been to keep the scheme opened. The AMI cost is 196 million over the remaining life, and then DEL costs of around 17 million over the remaining life.
Yeah, and has Treasury approved those costings?
Yes.
They have. Okay, so the 196, is that going to be covered by Treasury, and then 17 million from the department's own funds?
Yeah, the 17 is for admin, auditing, ensuring compliance, that sort of thing.
And then if the cost is the same to the public and the participants are going to receive their full 20-year accreditation, what is the department's view of the benefit of this bill then?
What the bill does is it really simplifies it.
Okay.
It simplifies it, it draws a line, it meets our legal requirements to the participants, and it provides us with budgetary certainty, because this will be the closure payment will be the same amount every year, so you've got budgetary certainty and you know where you are.
Yeah. And then if we just turn to closure payments, so this is an increased tariff from what was proposed last year in terms of the uplift figure. Why are we at a higher figure than what was produced last year?
Primary variable in the model that drove the change is the changes in fuel price. So the model that's used to determine the appropriate tariff includes capital costs, maintenance costs, and then the big variable one is the cost of biomass compared to the cost of kerosene.
Okay. And is your view then that the rate of return is still similar to that of what was produced last year then? Which was?
12%.
12%, yeah.
Okay. So even with this large uplift in comparison to last year, the rate of return is calculated by the department at the same rate?
The 12% is modelled to give a typical participant a 12% rate of return based on a 20-year investment profile.
Mm-hmm.
So based on the capital costs and the O&M costs, as Sarah said, over the 20-year period. But while capital costs, O&M costs are quite steady, fuel costs change all the time from day to day. So from day to day, once you set the tariff, the next day the rate of return changes.
Yeah.
So because people aren't typical, there's only people will change, and also the fuel cost changes. So that's why a review each year would affect the tariff level based on fuel price changes.
But as I say, the period, what the model did is, because we have such a bank of historical data of what's happening there, is to set the best assumptions for the 20-year period to give that rate of return.
Yes. And you've based those on the usage between 2019-21, is that right?
2017, 2019.
Okay. Why were those years chosen?
The years in question, we think, were the years that best represent the right usage for the installations, because the period up till 2017 typically may have seen some overproduction of heat. So that wasn't a good period. In 2019, the tariff that was set in 2019 was the correct tariff at the time it was set, but subsequently after that, a lot of unprecedented global events such as the war in Ukraine and COVID, etc., really did affect the price of kerosene and the price of biomass, and because of that we did see low usage in those years, which we felt that wasn't typical, so we felt that 2017 to 19 were the right years.
Okay. And then in terms of the administration of the closure of the scheme, this committee's been aware for some considerable time that Ofgem is leaving its role as administrator since or in April 2026. And from my perspective, the committee's now in a difficult position because this closure bill will run very close to, once it goes through its processes in the committee, and the Assembly will run very close to Ofgem withdrawing from that. And if we don't have legislation in place, it makes it very difficult, and it puts huge pressure on this committee to try and advance this at a quick pace. But I don't think that the committee are keen to rush this, because there are serious issues that we need to ensure aren't covered. So why has it taken so long for a pretty small bill to get to this committee?
Obviously there was a lot of work for the department to do behind the scenes, by identifying the options for closure or keep open, producing a business case, bringing the business case to Department of Finance, bringing it to Treasury, getting Treasury agreement. So that took an amount of time, and obviously with the three magic letters, RHI, everybody, including the committee, wants to do their level best to consider what they're looking at. So that's just why it took the time it took to get here.
Okay, and then in terms of closure arrangements, then moving forward will be taken on by the Department for the Economy. Given the department's history in terms of this scheme, are there any concerns that within the department that you don't have the capability to be able to administer this scheme for the next 10 years?
This is going to be a very, very much simplified. This isn't a continuation of the same of the RHI. This is all very much simplified, and at the end of the day, it's it is something that we can develop the systems for and have the people to deliver.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any...
Okay. Then in terms of that simplified process that you've created, from my reading of this, that means then the payments will be based on a banded system of usage. So if people are using their boiler under 5%, then they get a de minimis payment. But if they're using it from 5% up to 49%, sorry, up to 50%, they will receive a payment of 50% of usage. Can you not see how, from the public's perspective, somebody who's using a boiler 5% of the time is receiving a payment of 50% could be quite problematic?
Somebody using their boiler 5% of the year will get a de minimis payment, because, as we say, part of what goes into this consideration is the capital and maintenance of the machine, and they do have to, they will be required to maintain their machines, and if the machine is broken beyond repair, then the payments stop. And if the machine's out of action for over 50% of the year, then we write you down. Or if it's only in action for a small period of the year, then we'll write you down. But other than that, your closure payment is your set amount, increasing by inflation.
Yeah. So if somebody uses their boiler 6%, they're getting the same payment as somebody who uses it at 50%.
This is.
No, but is that right?
It is.
Okay. And then in terms of the inspection of the boilers themselves, so the department has said in its document to us that the requirement for quarterly meter readings will no longer be required under the closure regulations. Why is that the case?
Because the payments going forward aren't based on heat produced; they're based on historic heat produced, and they're based on the right amount of heat for the right installation in its particular location. So, there are good reasons why the participants will use the machines, provided that they're able to, they're the right kind of heat for what they're doing. So, based on what the installation was there for, and based on what they've been doing historically, we think it's the right payment for the right amount of heat.
And did I read correctly in your evidence that boiler owners will be notified in advance if they've been selected for inspection? Why would we tell people in advance if we're going to inspect?
Well, I think we legally have to get access to the property. We legally have to get in, but the advance notice wouldn't be enough time for somebody to rip out a boiler and put a new one in, or tamper with it so much that the inspection would be invalidated.
Is that covered then? Will that be covered in the regulations in terms of the notice period?
Yeah, it should be.
I don't think the detail of the notice period's been covered. Will be in the regulations itself. That would be in the.
Still being developed.
We need to produce guidance, separate guidance, and give the notice period. But legally, you have to tell somebody you're coming. That you can't just sort of break into their property.
No one's suggesting the breaking in, but surely if we're producing regulations and legislation, we could have in the legislation to say that all users may be subject to inspection, rather than giving people advance notice that you're coming. My final question then at this stage is in relation to the drafting then of the regulations for this winter period. So in your page 2 of your table pack, it says an urgent set of regulations. So my definition of urgent is sometimes very different from the department's definition of urgent. So could you let me outline to the committee what you mean by urgent in relation to that period?
It will be brought forward as quickly as possible. The ESO is currently doing the final checks on them, just to make sure that the final clauses are right, and we would be aiming to have those in place. We would be aiming to have a tariff uplift applying from the 1st of November. There may need to be a tiny little bit of slippage, which could be handled, Ofgem. If it's mid-November, Ofgem could handle that, but that is what we're aiming for. That's our target.
What is Ofgem's cut-off point to be able to administer this?
November.
In November. So if we just talk through the committee and an assembly process on that, so regulations would have to come to this committee and then they would have to be laid in the Assembly for a vote. And that's mid-November. We have a week's recess. Sorry, let me just look at my calendar. We have a week's recess coming up very soon, where obviously they couldn't be debated in the Assembly. So these are going to have to appear pretty quickly before the committee. Within the next week. Okay, that's all from me. David.
I struggle with this pretty quickly. We were told this last year, that it would be in the new year. It's now middle October. So why, you've said it, we've had 18 months actually from we told Ofgem, where when we first in the committee at the very start that they were leaving. So very quickly has never happened from the department, has it?
As I say, you know, those three little words, RHI, everybody wants to do a third job.
But you don't think we need to do a third job?
Oh no, I
But you're not
fully
giving us the
appreciate
opportunity
the
to do a third. You're not giving us the opportunity. You just said we've got a week to come, and we've got about a month to. We have to.
Yeah, that would be for the tariff uplift, and obviously, of course, we also had to do quite a bit of extensive engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So, the tariff uplift, yes, is if it's to be done before the winter period, would need to be done fairly quickly, and.
We heard this last year. This is deja vu. We sat here last year at nearly exactly the same time, and had exactly the same thing, and we weren't given any information, we weren't given anything. We've been given 3 pages, or 4 pages, whatever that is, that took, I don't know, that's basically asking us to trust a department to do what they want.
I think the difference between this year and last year is that I understood the committee were concerned last year that we as the department hadn't done sufficient engagement with participants, representatives of the participant stakeholders. I think the difference between last year and this year is, number one, we have done that engagement, and number two, that we have had the model independently scrutinised and looked at by external persons, who also, Professor David Rooney, who also helped, was there during the engagement with the participants and sort of facilitated some discussions with us, between us and them.
We furnished you with a paper that set out the rationale for the tariff uplift, setting out the changes in the fuel price differentials, which were the basis for coming up with the tariffs this year.
My point is, we had exactly this conversation last year. Exactly this conversation. Identical, right? And the uplift that you've got now, so is basically on the price of fuel different. That's the reason for it. So that would have happened anyway. So it's the same tariff as we had last year.
Well, as Sarah said, DOF, in approving the business case for the tariff uplift, asked us did we have independent scrutiny of the modelling that we've done, and we confirmed that Professor David Rooney from Queen's University did look at our model and confirmed that he thought that the assumptions we put in were correct. He also did independently his own modelling from a different, we did a top-up cost model, he did a top-down model from a totally different basis, and he independently came up with tariffs or annual payments, which were very much in line with our modelling. So from that was a bit of assurance for us.
The difficulty I have, right, is in 2019, you just said this morning that the tariff level was correct at that time. So tell me why the number of boilers has halved since 2019.
Fuel price movements.
So it wasn't correct at the time.
It was correct at the time it was made, and then very quickly after that, we had some major events, and we had the war in Ukraine, we had COVID, and the fuel price differentials just changed to a certain extent, to the extent that
it wasn't
no
correct at the
right.
time. So at the time it was made for a point in time without any future looking at anything. So at 2019, but now we're being asked to trust that this point is the correct point in time.
Yeah, I acknowledge it's very difficult for us to predict fuel price movements, and that's the difficulty in establishing the proper tariff. For
you're not closing the system. You're basically taking the 2012 Act and you're running it for 20 years. You're just closing, as Philip said, to there's no new participants, but this is the same. This is
already the case. Which is already the case.
Which is the case. Yeah. That hasn't changed. That's exactly as we are now. So this is a scheme called something else. basically, right? But if I run my boiler 60% of the time, 55% of the time, I get a full payment. And there's no mechanism at all to check, so it's actually worse than what we've got now.
I think the options available to us on closure, we could have done a single one-off payment and said, there you go.
Why was that ruled out?
Then that was ruled out on value for money basis. You couldn't be sure, and value for money and affordability.
And if there was a one-off payment, there's no guarantee that the boilers would continue to be used.
There's no guarantee now because there's no checks.
Well, there'll be an annual check
checks,
and there'll be an annual declaration that
yeah.
people testify that their boiler is being used, it's still operational.
This is the
Every
scheme
year.
that was abused by people making declarations.
Yeah.
So where's the scrutiny on that? Is there a new department to check? Go out and check. Is there a new section?
The participants will be asked to sign an annual declaration. Truthfully, they will also be asked to provide evidence such as their photographs of their installation still in situ, and evidence of their maintenance and fuel purchasing records. So that will let us know if somebody's doing something wrong, and then plus we will have a physical inspection and audit process, and it also has to be said up front that there has already been a 100% inspection programme done of the original scheme, and despite what the press said, it actually detected very low levels of fraud from the participants. So, I don't think that it's the case of that there was a lot of people out there making fraudulent statements.
So, how in the department, what has been put in place? So how will this work? Tell me how this works. So, have you got a new section is there people been put to manage this going forward?
A team will be put in place to make the annual payments, to take the declarations and the evidence each year and process and look at and do the annual payments. And we would also propose that we would do a procurement exercise to bring in somebody to do the physical inspections, an appropriate expert.
The scheme was to incentivise green heat. That was the point of the scheme. So I just can't finally that how do you get the crude payment of if I run at 55%? How does that incentivise me to actually use my to burn green energy?
You will have the machine there, and you'll be required to keep the machine there and maintain it and put fuel in it, and it will be meeting your heat needs. You will have a heat need there. Those businesses have heat needs there.
You've about 1,000 boilers that aren't anymore. So if I turned it back on, do I get the 100% payment?
You use it every year.
Yeah, 50% of the time.
If the people who have de minimis payments and had de minimis payments in the past, but we're going on their historic usage. So like I say, their historic usage gives us a fair indication of what they need, what they actually need, as opposed to...
I agree with the principle of closing RHI. I'm really uncomfortable giving the department the power to do whatever they want without scrutiny, and that's what this feels like we're doing. No. So I just want to throw that out.
I understand that, and that's why we will be. That's why we're consulting on the policy proposals for how closure will work in practice, and that consultation is a real consultation. And when the consultation's finished and the proposals are there in detail, we will be coming back with the closure regulations, and then you'll get a second chance. But you're
asking us to agree to those regulations. You're asking us to agree now to those regulations before all of that, because we're giving you the power to do whatever.
I don't think it wouldn't be 50% of the time. It would be 50% of the historic heat use. So if the historic heat use was correct, which we believe it was between 17 and 19, then if you use less than what your historic use was, you can declare to us that my boiler's been out of order for 6 months, and we will reduce the payment accordingly. So it's not 50% of the 100 of the full time.
Diana?
Thank you and good morning. Thank you for coming to committee today. I too, my concern is reputational damage. I think we talked about the public purse, and but I'm concerned that you've mentioned a simplification of the process. I think the public perception out there is that it has not been clear, this process the whole way through to this point. My question is, when the eligible heat output was able to be measured between 2017 and 19, why can that same mechanism not be used to measure the output going forward? Because it does leave it open, whether we like it or not. There's not the mechanism and the control in place to guarantee that fraud is not taking place. It has a very sorry history, RHI, and the public need to be satisfied going forward that there are strict controls in place.
I think what this does is gives the public budgetary certainty, because the payment to an individual installation subject to inflation will be the same amount every year, subject to the machine being there and in use. It'll be the same amount every year. So some of the things that of the past of overproduction of heat that's gone. And it's a simplification. It lets the participant know exactly what they're getting each year. It lets the public know what they're paying each year, subject to the machine staying in use. I think if we had opted for a closure where there was a single one-off, here's a closure payment, we don't care what happens for the next 10 years. There could have been value for money concerns, because people could have just got rid of the boiler the next day and not kept it and maintained it, continued to use it. So I think that was ruled out. And I think it's important to say that we did have a 100% inspection, physical inspection. The rampant fraud among the participants, I think that was an exaggeration. I'm not going to say an exaggeration in the press, but I wouldn't like to say that there was rampant fraud. And I would like to say that going forward there will be safeguards in terms of producing evidence, producing photographs, producing records of your fuel purchase, producing records of your maintenance, and a physical inspection.
Just to say, what was done in the past to measure the heat output was through metering, but if we were to try to continue that, that wouldn't be closure of the scheme. That would be just continuation of the scheme as it is, and the department doesn't have the actual ability to do the meter readings that Ofgem have been doing for us. We don't have the administration, so that's why we've come up with the idea that we'd base them on what were the correct levels of heat use and pay them on that.
Have you looked at putting in your own mechanism to measure heat outputs? Had that been explored at any time?
Just continuing to make payments on the basis of you burn more, you get paid more, then that wasn't considered to be closure.
And just one other question, please. Clause 1.6 of the bill expressly allows regulations to be made from time to time to alter the scheme until it's completely closed and amend or revoke. Is this a get-out clause where something might have gone wrong, where the department can change the scheme? Is that learning on the hoof?
I think the bringing forward of regulations to make changes to anything in the future would be through due process, the normal due process that regulations need to go through, where there would be proper scrutiny. I mean, that wouldn't be we'll just change whatever we feel like now. That's not the case. I mean, obviously making regulations have a due process to go through.
Thank you. Gary?
Thanks, Chair, and thank you both for your update today. Obviously, this is a very delicate balance, and it's an important one we get right, because it's about ensuring that those who had entered the scheme in good faith, that they are obviously respected and their views are heard, but also ensuring that whatever happens in the future, that we don't allow for potential further abuse going forward. Obviously, so this piece of correspondence we have in front of us, this is to do with obviously giving the Minister the power, and then the further legislation coming forward will obviously look into the closure and the mechanisms in terms of that. The Chair's already outlined this is all very tight in terms of timescales, and we have to be certain in our own minds that we're giving it the proper scrutiny that needs to happen. In terms of the wider consultation on the closure regulations, are you giving a commitment that you are going to bring that back here to this committee prior, obviously, to us completing our work within the committee stage?
We'll bring the closure regulations to you.
Yeah.
We'll consider the responses to the consultation, develop the closure regulations, and bring the closure regulations
And will we
forward.
see side of the consultation responses, what that feedback is?
We'll bring the consultation responses and the closure
Okay.
regulations at the same
Yeah,
time.
no, that's important. And in terms of the target for closure, April 2026, what contingencies are the department putting in place if these timescales do slip, which is a possibility? What happens beyond April 2026 if we don't say meet those timescales that are in place?
There's a clause in the Closure Bill that says that the first pay. Well, it basically allows for the bill to apply for certain periods of time before it comes in, which basically means that when the participant comes due their first payment, that first payment will be applied back to the date when they got their last one from Ofgem. So if there's a small amount of slippage, that will be allowed for within that, so that the participant can get their continuity and their protection.
When you say a small amount of slippage, what would that be potentially?
Well, the thing is, not everyone will switch over to the new payment on day one, for example, because the accreditation dates are spread throughout the year. There's some peaks in like November and February, so the workload for us to start making payments won't be, pay all 1,900 on the same day, so it's spread out over the year. So in that sense, any delay is manageable, I think.
We are working at pace to try and bring this forward as quickly as we possibly can to allow the committee to do their scrutiny. So, but as you can imagine, we have gone to the trouble of engaging with the participants, because the last time round, that's I think one of the concerns of the committee was that there hadn't been enough engagement with representatives and stakeholders. So
and that's
we've
welcome.
got that right this time.
And in terms of some of that informal feedback, has it been broadly positive?
Broadly positive.
Just a final question, because a lot of this technical stuff, obviously, we will have an opportunity to discuss again. But when I was reading through, one of the things that was mentioned in terms of, and you mentioned it today, the quarterly meter readings no longer being required. In terms of that, if a participant stops generating heat entirely, but obviously the installation's still in place, how do you proactively identify? You mentioned photographs and stuff like that. Is that how you proactively identify?
They'll need to submit with their annual declaration. Now, it's a legally binding annual declaration that they'll be signing.
Right.
And they'll be signing that what they're saying is true. They will also be providing photographs of the machine in situ. They'll be providing evidence of where they got their fuel. They will be providing evidence that they've been maintaining it. So that'll let us know that people didn't just take their closure payment and then scrap the machine.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much. I appreciate this is a trigger point for many, and I think it is important that we all take the time to study it. It is a bit like deja vu. We have been here before. And I do actually appreciate that from the last time that you came to us to now, one of the big problems that we had as a committee was, number one, lack of information, number two, lack of detail in terms of proposed tariff rates, and also what was the engagement with those participants. You've always made clear, and you made it clear at the last time, and it is fundamental, that what you're trying to do is strike a balance between a fair settlement and also in good faith with both managing the taxpayer and those genuine participants. In relation to the proposed tariff differential, so it's changed, the table shows there's change. I remember the last time you were here, you said that you believed you struck the right balance. Okay? We're here now today, and again we're hearing that we've struck the right balance, but it's different. How do you square that circle?
Well, I think in terms of understanding what goes into the model, the big one being fuel price differentials, and I think as Alan explained, one of the differences this time is that number one, the external scrutiny, number two, that the person doing the external scrutiny had done their own model and came up they did a top-down model, we did a bottom-up model, and they came up with broadly the same number as us, and that gives us a certain amount of comfort, and I hope that provides some more comfort.
So obviously then there's been engagement with the industry, and are you content at this stage that you believe that industry feel that you're striking the fair balance to those good faith participants?
Broadly speaking, that's the feedback we're getting to date. Now obviously once they see the consultation they might, they'll say whatever they feel they need to say, but the feedback we've gotten to date from the participants is that they appreciate the engagement and that they can see that we're attempting to be fair and to do this properly.
And through the public consultation we'll find out whether or not the taxpayer and the public feel that we've struck the right balance. That's essentially, and you're giving the commitment today that the results of that public consultation will be with the committee before the end of committee stage to ensure that we can make informed decisions.
Before the committee's asked to decide on the final regulations, we'll know what's behind the final regulations.
So, next point, those that are eligible for payments will have to ensure that their boiler is still operational to the end date as was always set out in terms of the length of time, yes? Is the payment per application or per site?
It's per installation.
Installation, okay, that's fair enough. We've discussed, and I think it is a genuine point of, well, I suppose the unknown, that we're dealing with legacy usage, so between 17 and 19. And you did mention, Sarah, that there was a low level of fraud that was detected in the system. Are we confident in using the 2017 to 2019 that we're essentially safeguarding the taxpayer in relation to the usage levels, and that it is in line with what you said, that there was no fraud detected in that particular period?
We think that 17 to 19 represents the most balanced period in terms of what the right usage was for the individual installations, because as I say, pre-17 there was obviously concern that there was overproduction of heat, and there was enough said about that at the time, and then there was a low level of heat production detected because of fuel price differentials after 2019. So 2017 to 2019 for us represents the right period.
Was there any fraud detected in any of the applications between the 17 to 19 period by the department?
There were some participants who were lost their accreditation, and there was a very, very low level.
So are we talking of a percentage term? I'm not going to put exacts in your mouth, but are we talking below 5%?
I don't have the exact number to hand.
It would be as low as that, I think, is from a recollection, but I would need to check. But again, those people would no longer be accredited, so there'd be no suggestion that they would be able to make. So
the department is confident that all of those who would still be eligible under this closure scheme, the evidence would suggest that they have been fair, good faith participants.
So yes.
Okay. Boiler owners have previously disputed in court the tariffs that they were paid the period 2019 until present. Obviously that was something that we discussed at the last occasion. Do you believe that the new closure payments address this period? Will they address that particular period of where there was a dispute?
We will not be backdating, because backdating, in our view, does not represent good value for money to the taxpayer.
Okay. In relation to the table 1 in our table papers, which is the tariff table, Are you able to give a breakdown of the number of appliances within each of those sectors?
The vast majority of them,
About
vast majority.
98% is really under the one category there.
The lower medium and upper medium biomass categories, the majority of them are in the lower medium biomass category.
Yeah. So how many of the 1,864 lower medium solid biomass boiler installations in 2024 are still in operation?
Of the total number of installations, there's about just under 1,900 are still live and accredited.
Now there are some participants who have, there is a certain percentages of participants who have stopped engaging with the department. The department is going to give those participants a fair opportunity to come forward and make declarations and provide evidence.
590 inactive.
Yeah.
They have been submitting
Yeah.
meter readings or 0 meter readings they've been
Because
submitting.
we don't know why they've gone on. We don't know why they're inactive. So we do have to give them a fair chance to come forward and provide evidence that they still have an installation and they're there and they'll generate heat.
Could be the tariff isn't worth their while to generate, or it could be other reasons that they might have decommissioned or something.
One of the concerns from some genuine participants that we heard through evidence of the committee in terms of representation was that the rate that was struck didn't even cover maintenance costs for their applications. Are you confident that the new rate will incorporate that in terms of making it viable rather than?
I think the new payments are fair.
So the new tariff has been built up with all cost maintenance, capital cost repayment, barrier costs, and the fuel price differential.
And it's also important to clarify as well that what the payments were for was the difference between what the participants would have had to pay had they gone with the fossil fuel and what they had to pay because they went with biomass, not everything, not the total cost, but the difference.
So the department previously advised that last year's rejected tariff would generate an internal rate of return of 12% and would then comply with state aid rules. Are we confident that this particular one and the payment scheme will comply with those state aid rules?
We've verified that.
Okay. Thank you. I look forward to further engagement throughout. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. And appreciate that you have done the engagement. That was something that I raised last time. Who did you engage with?
We engaged with the Ulster Farmers Union, the Renewable Heat Association, NI, and the Federation of Small Businesses.
Thank you. I suppose a lot's already been covered, Chair. And the thing with RHI is trust and trust in the process. And I think it's fair to say to date it's been messy and that hasn't really engendered trust in the process. I agree with David, it does feel like there is a bit of a rerun, and I suppose for me my biggest concern is the department is asking for a lot of power here and we don't know what's going to be in the regulations. We don't know what's going to be in the guidance. There wasn't that clear to me then. And I just think that there is more work that needs to be done to reassure members that we can have confidence in this process. I want to see RHI closed, but I want to know what's coming next. And at the moment, I don't feel like I do. And I would like to know what's going to be in the regulations. What further reassurance can be given to us that we can have trust in this process?
I think that's what the policy consultation that's out at the minute sets out. The policy consultation that's out at the minute sets out what we propose to put in those regulations, and then the results of that consultation process will help us decide what goes in those regulations, and then of course the regulations themselves will go through their normal due process procedures. So that's hopefully where the committee can get their reassurance.
I just don't know how I can vote for a bill not knowing what's going to be in the regulations. But thank you,
In terms
Chair.
of the regulations, just to follow up on Kate's point, when do you see them introduced into the Assembly at the same time that we're at committee stage of this bill? Or
We would hope to bring them both together at the same time, yeah,
okay.
and then you'll have them.
No problem. Emma?
Thanks, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Brilliant. Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. And obviously, you've been put through your paces and covered quite a lot of this already. So I appreciate that. Can I ask if any other minister had suggested alternative closure arrangements?
No, not that I'm aware of. No, I don't.
Okay.
Any minister suggesting alternative closure arrangements?
Okay. No, thanks for clarifying that. I think so some of it has been covered in terms of the questions with other members there around, and I know like I have particular constituents that I could look to who suffered really badly reputational damage in the wake of the whole scandal, and obviously as a result of bad governance in the past. And it's probably you've reflected that in your answers there around how it was reported in the media and how some things were portrayed. But I think it's important to bear that in mind as well. So thanks very much. That's me.
Thank you, Emma. David.
Just quickly, a couple of things have been said, because it goes back to the tariff last year and the tariff this year. Tell me again, the reason it's higher this year is because the difference in fuel.
We had a look at the fuel price movements.
Okay, but when we look at the graph that's in front of us, there's no. It's actually cheaper in January 25, unless it's dramatically changed from then. But the graph in front of us shows it actually cheaper than October when we were looking at this last year. So how?
Yeah, we had to take a long-term view of the different fuel price movements. So we saw, for example, for biomass, the volatility has settled down, and for that, then we have to predict to see not what we've seen, but what's going to happen in the future. So we used a spot price for predicting what biomass would be. But for kerosene, the volatility was much more apparent, and we used a long-term average for that.
How's that different to last year? This is
Last year we didn't use the spot price for biomass.
But you told us it was right last year, and you told us it was right in 2019.
I think whatever the problem is, we were predicting fuel prices in the future, and
yeah, but then be honest
once we
with
do
us.
it the next day, it's going to be wrong.
But you're coming,
accept that.
But you're coming telling us that this is the right price, and I'm only going. Then you're asking us to trust us. So
I think we're not asking you to trust necessarily us. We're asking you to understand that we're basing this on certain assumptions around fuel prices, and fuel prices, particularly kerosene. The price of kerosene is notoriously volatile. But I think what we're asking you to consider this time, the difference between this time and last time, is the independent scrutiny, the levels of engagement, and we're hoping that by having that independent scrutiny and those levels of engagement, that will give you more confidence this time.
Taking 18 months to meet 3 people, and the price of kerosene is cheaper today than it was last year. I am trying to. What I'm saying is, I would just like the honesty of this to go. We're plucking a figure, and we're just don't tell us that this is the right price when we've historic that it hasn't been.
I'm trying to emphasise the difficulty of trying to get a price of predicting fuel prices. I don't think any of us can do it.
If it helps at all, as I say, there was 2 different models came up with the same number, and if it helps at all, now while there's no direct read across between the Northern Ireland scheme and the GB scheme, you can't read them across because the GB scheme had digression, and they have a number of different tariffs, a range of them, whereas we have one set tariff. But the tariff we have come up with now is in and around the tariff level that in GB you would see for those who entered the scheme in 2015, the GB scheme in 2015. I don't know if that helps the committee at all, but it just...
It's not the tariff, it's not the level I'm talking about. It's that you're telling us that this is the right tariff. Yet we're told that before. That's the bit that I'm getting at. We've been told this constantly, that this is right. Trust us on this.
No, I'm not sure.
One more.
what more I can
So
bring you to
through the
help.
chair, and you know,
Sarah.
I think this is a valid conversation, and I actually accept it is very difficult.
It is,
whenever
I
you're
agree totally.
forecasting fuel prices and the difficulty with that. Could you perhaps, for our understanding, talk us through, and you've started on that process, sir, the process by which the proposed tariff, you know, what processes have you went through to come to this figure? So that would be helpful for us to understand it. So that can be in terms of a number of different models and maybe an average or whatever, but that's maybe where I think David's maybe come from. We'd like to see just some of the process that has went into calculating this figure and how we can have confidence that it does strike the right balance.
Well, the model we use is a bottom-up model, which means we look at all the costs that I'll refer, typical. I have to say typical because, for example, we don't know what the capital cost. We don't know what somebody paid for the boiler. Somebody might have bought a second-hand one or bought a brand new one. So we don't know. So there's a lot of uncertainty. So we take a typical, what we think is a typical cost for a participant, and we build that up through the costs for, as we say, capital costs of the boiler, typical O&M costs, typical sort of barrier costs. This has always been an issue to sort of get people to sort of switch over. We make that assessment, and we also then have to look into the difference in fuel price between what they would pay if they were using a fossil fuel boiler and a renewable boiler. So we build up that cost model, and then we have to say, well, over a 20-year period, which is the sort of deemed to be the asset life of the appliance, over that 20-year period, in order to make that investment, to meet all their costs, we say they need a 12% rate of return. Internal rate of return, so that's not like money you earn in a bank, that's not a 12% per annum, payment. So we work all that out into the model, and that generates then an appropriate tariff. And that tariff is sort of what comes out of the model. And so if any of those assumptions change, the tariff will change. Now what we find is a lot of those earlier assumptions on costs, capital, O&M, barrier costs, they are fairly steady. They shouldn't change. And in fact, once they've been
And they're
made,
fairly well known as well, because we did have the 100% inspection, so we've got reasonable data there.
So the real volatility is the fuel price differential, and that's the difficulty we have. So every time we do this calculation, you would probably get a different tariff to match the 12%, and that's the problem.
It would depend on what period you took your fuel price movements over. But we,
but,
we
I mean, the
did
thing
a
was,
lot of engagement and settling on the right period and settling on how to do it.
and you wouldn't really want to do very periodic reviews of the tariff. Hopefully we'd have it set for the 20 years of the scheme, but it's just there has been that maybe wrong tariffs in the past, and
I think what both participants and taxpayers wants is a bit of certainty going forward. How much is this going to cost us, and how much is this going to cost the taxpayer? How much is the participant going to receive? And I think this gives everyone a wee bit more certainty than they had in the past.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And then just a couple of final follow-ups from me, and then we'll let you go. So, just for the record, you've confirmed the Treasury has approved this.
Yes.
Okay. And in terms of the overall AME allocation for the remainder of this period, how much of that budget does it use?
Per year, I've got that here. It's
AME budgets around about 33.5 million per annum, and this is, I think,
this is
17.8
million.
of it.
What's the plan for the
Remainder?
remainder?
The Treasury has made it clear that any follow-on or any scheme that might be developed in the future would need to meet certain criteria, and would also be dependent on things like the spending review that's coming up. So there would be a lot of engagement needed with Treasury, and the department would need to take like a holistic view, of a strategic view as to how we're going to manage the transition from fuel coming from fossil fuels, heat coming from fossil fuels towards a decarbonised heat. So we've had a number of consultations on various different aspects of renewable heat, and we would be intending to just continue that development work and take that holistic view and continue to engage with Treasury, which we've engaged, but we need to continue to engage. But we need to draw this line in order to allow us to.
And what's your aim target then to have a new policy? Because obviously we have legal targets that have been set by a previous Assembly and Executive, and there's £17 million of funding there being underutilised to if this is passed, to try and ensure that Northern Ireland plays its role in the overall climate change work. We're now at 2025. I assume you're not thinking that any new policy, scheme or intervention will be in place anytime soon?
Will not be in place next year.
Yeah. So but that money will continue to be returned to Treasury?
As I say, what we're aiming to do is give value for money, as opposed to just target to use the entire budget.
No, of course. But my preference would obviously be that we had a scheme that was value for money, but also continued to work towards meeting our legal targets. In relation to the department's own budget for this then, how is that 17 million profiled over the next 10 years?
Oh, the Dell money?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not exactly steady over there's an inflationary factor built into it, so
Roughly £1 million, isn't it?
it's rough. Well, yeah, I think there's a peak and it will tail off towards the end as people start dropping out, if the numbers start dropping out of the scheme. But I can give you the profile if you need.
Sure. And then, so within that business case that was produced for that, what are going to be the number of inspectors that will be employed?
We would be intending to tender to get external providers of the inspections.
I think our target is roughly 100 inspections per annum, and again,
at that rate, we should be able to get round everybody.
a number of years.
100 a year. So 100 a year for the next 10 years is 1,000, and you said there's currently
1,800.
There's just under 2,000 installations.
So how are we getting
but
around
there's
everybody?
just
But
over-
there's only 900 participants, so some people have multiple boilers.
Yeah.
So that's how you could do
That's
it.
100 sites
Yeah,
that we're going to get around a year.
be our target.
Okay. No problem at all. Well, listen, thank you very much for your representations on that issue. It's really, really appreciated. And the committee will probably follow up with a few questions. But I think my takeaway is that you are making a commitment today that the regulations for both the uplift of the winter period and the regulations for the closure will also be tabled and at this committee before we're asked to pass this.
The tabling of the regulations for the uplift of the winter period need to come first.
Yep.
If that's going to be this winter, that they need to come first. The tabling of the closure regulations and the final bill, we would be intending to bring them forward to you at the same time,
Following the consultation.
following the consultation.
This is obviously the bill. This is the final bill at this stage. But before it completes its passage in the Assembly, the regulations for closure will also be published.
We would be hoping to do that.
No, but you said
No.
you said earlier that they would be.
We would be hoping that we would get you the final regulations as soon as possible. Yeah, the 20th.
The closure regulations?
Yeah, closure regulations.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
point.
so nothing can happen on the closure bill until the regulations are there, and you'll see the regulations.
And you'll come back to you on that.
Yeah.
I am confused. So the uplift regulations, they're going to come first because if we're going to meet our target by Ofgem leaving us in April, they need to be in place by mid-November, so that's fine. Second reading of this bill is scheduled for Monday the 20th of November, and then it'll go into committee stage. But before committee stage has completed, we're probably going to seek an extension. I can't obviously dictate what the committee would do, but I would imagine till around the end of January. Will we have the regulations for the closure before
You'll
then?
have we're aiming to have you the regulations in January.
Perfect. And then guidance for the guidance going to come after, or
I would suggest that the guidance will be a living document, because my experience of running schemes, and I've run them before, is that things come up that you'd never dream are going to come up, and it is often necessary to change guidance, and that's why it's appropriate to have guidance and to keep it a living document. So I would suggest that in terms of the audit procedures, that would be a living document that would be.
No problem. Did you say when the winter uplift? When are we getting them next week?
We're aiming that the tariff should apply from the 1st of November,
Yeah.
and we would be hoping to get the regulations to you. They're just undergoing their final checks.
They've just come back from DSO
They
actually
just come back
last
this
night.
morning.
so
That's how fast we're
perfect.
working,
Cool.
and we would be
You'll
hoping.
have them for us for next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate your time and dedication. Okay, before we do a short recess before our next session, I think that is useful. So if we can just ensure that we bring that together. So the commitment is that we're going to get regulations for that winter period uplift next week. Department listening. Your officials have just claimed that we're getting that by next week, and also to Kate and David and others point that during the committee stage of this bill, we're going to get the regulations. So the committee will not be asked to move this bill out of committee until we have got those regulations. That was a commitment that was just given to us.
Yeah, and we got the commitment that we would also get the public consultation
Yeah.
before the end.
Yes.
Yeah, I would
What's
take
that,
it
Johnny?
to mean that,
Sorry.
Chairperson.
Public consultation with us
Yeah,
before
yeah.
the end of that.
Sorry.
No, she did say that. She did say that.
She did say
Chair, is the committee content to write to the department and just clarify with them what the chair just said, that we'll get regs next week for the winter uplift. We'll get the feedback from the consultation that they're doing now, plus the regulations too,
Yep.
in January. Okay. Right, and also just for them to clarify that, so if the committee stage were, say, okay, it does even pass second stage, let's say it does, let's say the committee stage concludes at the end of January, that the regulations probably would not be in place by the 1st of April, but the department seemed to say there that that's okay, they can apply retrospectively. They seem to be saying that, so confirmation on that, so there'd be nothing to worry about, and the members wouldn't need to worry, need to feel under pressure in terms of finishing the committee stage.
You don't get the
early.
regulations until October, or until January, sorry, so we are going to be under pressure. So the committee stage is what dates? If we,
We decide. We'll
Yeah.
decide. We decide how long our committee stage is. There is a thing in the table pack in terms of a projected, which is around the end of January.
Page 40 of your table pack.
But
Sorry.
and I just want to check. Once the committee has sought an extension, it can't seek a.
You would have to, no, short answer, no. No, you definitely can't, definitely not.
Okay.
That's it. Okay, what you could do is ask the Speaker to suspend standing orders, but nobody's ever done that.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. So what you would do is you ask for an extension, you work to the extension, we'll finish the extension on time, and if members will cooperate, I will definitely make that happen. But
the evidence session will be once we've got the regulations, not before we get the regulations. On the timeline that was there, they're in before we actually see the regulations.
Well, we can update that.
Yeah.
So we need to have
Yeah.
Chairperson, if you look at
the evidence after that.
If you look at page 40,
Yeah.
I had said to the department, could you please come on the 17th of December with the feedback from the closure regulation consultation? And they're basically saying no, they'll come in January.
Okay.
So that means things go a little bit later. So
Okay.
January will be quite a lot to do. But that, should the bill pass at the second stage on the 20th, we would launch a call for evidence straight away. We would then maybe close that maybe early in December, seek an extension to something like the end of January, maybe beyond, and take evidence then in December, and then from the department it sounds like in January, and then after that, once you've taken your evidence and you don't require any more, the committee could then informally deliberate and decide what it wants to do with the bill at that point, if that seems to work. Also then, so Chair, if the committee is content, write to the department, just confirm what we just said there about the regulations and a bit about the retrospective application. Also, perhaps seek sight of the two tariff models. Now, we've got one, but Professor Rooney's we've not seen. Also, maybe ask for the Dell profile, which the chair just asked about in the end. And maybe also seek an update on the numbers of installations so you know what we're talking about. So you look at page 57 of your meeting pack. I've got that from the department's website.
Yeah.
That's 31st of March 2024. There's nothing, so that 590 no longer playing. That's news to me. So we could seek an update on that. And then, as I think Mr. Buckley had asked about the level of fraud or loss of accreditation in the RHI scheme, what did they actually find?
Through the Chair, just to clarify on David's point, so you're indicating that those proposed regulations will be with us before we would take evidence from those that we went out for a call of evidence, so that we can actually talk to them directly to what the regulations are? Is that, because it seems to me that would be natural how you would do things, but I'm just trying to take your advice on it.
There's a consultation out, and that tells you what the regulations are going to be, kind of. So what I would suggest we do, members, is that departments doing that consultation, let them. We'll do a call for evidence, we'll ask about the bill. You can also ask stakeholders to also comment on do you have anything to say about the regulations?
And if there are any major changes between the regulations that are published and those that were consulted upon, we can then bring them back.
You would get that, so yeah.
Can I just clarify then what exactly I agree with Johnny? The department keep telling us in the new year, in the autumn, so in January could actually mean the 20th of January.
It could.
Yeah. So, but if we have got an extension of committee stage to the end of January, can we?
We can decide as a committee.
Can we extend that again?
No.
But what I think, as the chair is hinting, what you would do is you would seek a longer extension on that, and then beat it. And so you don't have to go.
So
if you said,
oh no, 100%. I don't think we should drag.
Yeah, no.
But I don't think we should feel completely under pressure to.
You're right. It could come in the 20th.
Yeah.
You're absolutely. I think I would probably put money.
So the committee has a decision not to make once that's predetermined. Obviously, that second stage passes on the 20th. It will move to committee stage. It'll then be up to members to set the period. So obviously, I think the longest one has been 18 months. So I don't think we'll be aiming for an 18-month extension.
No.
No, okay.
Is that agreed then?
Members content with all that?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairperson.
So are members content, just before we move on to then the nice topic of the Skills Council, we take a short recess to move our minds from energy to skills.
So we'll just push the button there, members, and we're...
Committee Room 30. Sound. 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 Committee Room 30. Signed. 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 Committee Room 30. Signed.
Colleagues, we'll now move to item number 7, which is the Northern Ireland Skills Council. The committee will now hear oral evidence from the Skills Council. I refer you to page 69 of the clerk's covering note. Page 80 is a paper from the Skills Council. The second monitoring report at page 90, and other papers are also tabled. Can I, on behalf of the committee, once again welcome our friends and colleagues from the Skills Council. Kathleen, you're very, very welcome, and delighted to have you all here today. Lorna, Barry and Mary. Very happy to hand over to you at this stage, if you're content.
Thank you. I have met most of you before. Welcome back to some of the members who've been away for a while. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kathleen O'Hare, and I'm chair of the Northern Ireland Skills Council since 2023. And I let my colleagues introduce themselves. I'll pass over to Mary first.
Good morning, Chair and members. My name is Mary Mahan, and I'm pleased to appear before you this morning as a member of the Northern Ireland Skills Council. I also work with Manufacturing NI on the board, and I represent Manufacturing NI as the skills spokesperson. As many of you will know, manufacturing is the backbone of the Northern Ireland economy, responsible for around £10 billion worth of exports annually. We cover a lot of different subsectors, right through from aerospace, engineering, food processing and pharmaceutical. Skills shortages are a big issue for manufacturers. Everything from welders, engineering, lab technicians and digital automation. So I'm very pleased to have the role on the Skills Council to be able to put the voice of the manufacturing industry and look at bring those challenges, but also offer solutions to the council.
Okay. And I should add that Mary is just back from a visit to the Basque Country as well, so it would be apt if you want to ask her any questions on that before you hear them officially. Now to Lorna.
Good morning. My name is Lorna McAdoo. I am the co-chair of the SETI subcommittee, and I am also the head of Version 1 Northern Ireland, which is a tech company, and also the vice chair for Software NI, which is a membership body, really bringing all of the software sector organisations together to help drive the skills agenda.
Good morning, my name is Barry Nielsen, and I'm the vice chair of the Green Skills Delivery Group within the Skills Council. My day job is Chief Executive of the Construction Industry Training Board, and my background is I'm a civil engineer, but possibly more of interest that I started off life leaving school as an apprentice draftsman and went through all of the stages of education to become a chartered civil engineer, and now sitting where I am in head of the skills organisation for construction.
Yeah.
So there's a number of things that have been very foremost in our deliberations recently. Firstly, collaboration. And I have to stress that collaboration north, south, east, west is very much on the Skills Council agenda. We don't see skills as a divisive thing across borders. We see the fact that skills is an all islands issue. If you look today, there's 150 flights between this island and England, Scotland and Wales, as well as ferries. So we see that seamless need for skills portability right across these islands. With that in mind, we are collaborating greatly with the National Skills Council of Ireland, where we hope to have a joint conference in the new year, particularly to look at issues about portability, because that is a huge issue for us. And next week, I will meet with the head of Skills England as well. So we are looking very much at an all islands approach to skills. We're also very concerned about apprenticeships at the minute. We know great strides have been made about apprenticeships, but we are concerned about apprenticeship placements, the lack of placements, and we can bring some solutions to that today. We're also concerned about the waiting lists for apprenticeship courses, and we're very concerned about qualifications and vocational qualifications as well. We applaud the people on this committee for their diligence in looking at a talent development agency, and we welcome the passing of that motion, whatever that agency is. But we're very concerned what's the next step in that, in the executive taking this on board as a real way forward for skills, because we heard mantras in the past from previous leaders saying education is so important, skills are necessary. We're short 6,000 skilled workers currently to stand still in Northern Ireland. We have a huge number of NEETs, which many of you brought to that number, that frightening number of 25,000, being added to every year by 2,000 to the Assembly floor last week. We really welcome that, but we need to tackle that. So those are 3 burning issues. We have others, but those are 3 burning issues for us.
Thank you very much indeed for that. And I suppose maybe if I can just start in relation to that ever-growing number of those not in education or training or employment, why do you think that despite the additional support that the department says they've put in place, that number continues to grow?
I think, before I bring in colleagues, we need to bring in real collaborative efforts to make sure that happens between Department for the Economy, Department for Education, Communities, Justice. I have to say 3 of those bodies are represented on the Skills Council, and we see great collaboration there. But then we see things like the downgrading of vocational qualifications, and we're extremely concerned about the recent undermining of essential skills. The fact that it can't be measured on the schools framework, it can't be measured on the FE framework, but employers are meant to still accept the essential skills level 2 as a grade C. We feel that is an undermining of vocational qualifications, and we are also concerned that there was no consultation whatsoever with employers on that vocational qualification, which is a gateway qualification. An English and Maths qualification is a gateway qualification for those people who are not in education, employment or training, but also for those people wishing to go back into the skills market. And I know Lorna, as chair of SETI, will have an opinion on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that's really worrying is the fact that within that number is the increase of females as well. We know that there is so much more work that needs to be done, and as Kathleen said, a more joined up approach in enabling that to happen would start to see some impact on that. But it is going to be a growing number until we get the right pathways in place for everybody. The people with caring responsibilities out there needs to be looked at as well. We need a flexible way of education for these people. We need flexibility in the education, in the training, and then in the employment down the line as well.
And just in terms of the proposals from the Minister for Education in terms of uplifting that legal age from 16 to 18 to require young people to either be in education or training, has the Skills Council got a view whether that will help or hinder that process?
We responded to that and we said that we welcomed that, but we need to see what pathways there are for young people. And clearly vocational education is a pathway, and we have long tried to work for that parity of esteem of qualifications in Northern Ireland. Yes, we think it is the right vision of direction, but I think in the background of that, the pathways need to be formed. We will be responding to the consultation that came out this week on the move, whether we should move to linear qualifications from modular qualifications. We think that is a real difficulty for many people in accessibility, and I know quite a lot of young people have already responded to that, and we hope that the Department of Education listened to that, and we're aware of the need for proper liaison between those 2 departments and indeed those 2 committees.
And just to go back slightly on the point that you had made, you'd identified the important departments. Which ones currently don't serve or aren't represented on the Skills Council?
Department of Justice.
Is there a particular reason for that?
I think at that time it just wasn't seen as the main department.
Okay.
But where we see a lot of people, particularly in Hydebank College, for example, and we know that FE colleges have a campus in Hydebank College, and there's a substantial amount of money comes from this department to providing education there. But we see that as very, very necessary to get young people a better start in life.
We are also aware of the work that the Department for Justice is doing with the Employers Board and the creation of an Employers Forum, which I think will be a huge advantage and something that we will work closely with.
If I could maybe add to that as well, that within the justice system, a really important part is not just the education that's done while people are in the justice system, but the transition from the justice system to the workplace. And my own organisation, just looking at the construction sector, we are working with NIACRO and Department of Justice to look at that transition piece of moving people into our sector, which is a sector where we can accommodate individuals with low or no previous qualifications and experience, and then use the sector to build qualifications and experience as they go. So the collaboration piece that Kathleen's already talked about is so important, and while DOJ might not be on the skills committee, they're very much involved in looking at the skills agenda.
In terms of the skills action plan, we were told that would be produced by the department in September of this year. We have not received that yet. Do you have any idea when it's coming?
I can't answer for the Minister on the date for announcement, but I know the Skills Council looked at the draft of that and made suggestions to that in spring. And I know there were a number of recommendations from the PAC that they wanted to take on board. But my understanding, but I can't speak for the Minister, is that it is really imminent, that launch, and I would be surprised if that launch wasn't in the next few weeks.
And then in terms of the future of the Skills Council, have you had any discussion with the department that they will continue to have the Skills Council in place and the valuable work that you do?
There's been never any mention that the Skills Council is not going to continue. I think the current review of the Skills Council is that it was brought on board as a result of the 10X strategy, and that it probably needs to change from the chair's point of view. If you would like my opinion, it could do more. I'm meant to work 2 days a month on the Skills Council. This is my third day this week. So it's one of those things that if the Skills Council is going to become more effective and the members of the Skills Council are giving above and beyond their time to this, then it needs to become probably a full-time role for someone in the future to lead the Skills Council, to work as that umbrella group. Because at this stage, members of the Skills Council, either ex officio or appointed, have a huge body of knowledge right across different sectors. And that is something that the Skills Council has, which is unique. But in order to do a more effective job, they would need to have, I'd say, feed into a lot more departments. We feed into a number of different departments at the minute, but is it appropriate that we're just under economy? Maybe not. And I know some Skills Council members would feel that, because I think the nature of what we do, we feed into a lot of different areas. I would see it grow, whether it becomes a Skills Council or not. I'm not wedded to that. I'm wedded to seeing a Skills Council be more effective, holding people to account more effective, having particular set meetings with ministers, etc., throughout the year.
And Chair, true, from an industry perspective, what industry really need is that one-stop interface. And we welcome the motion that was passed around a skills talent agency, which would provide that one-stop shop for intelligence on skills, administering the bureaucracy around the apprenticeship models as well. So, the Skills Council is an advisory body. We're all here independent. I'm representing the voice of our industry, but having that delivery mechanism is really, really important to really translate our vision into action and implementation on the ground.
If I can talk for other employer sectors, I think what's really important is that from an employer point of view, there's a lot of confusion out there about how to acquire, how to train, how to develop young people through apprenticeships and different models. And a one-stop shop that could help and advise the employer side of things, not to mention the provider sector itself, which is quite fragmented in many ways between formal FE, HE, and then the private and voluntary sector. So a body that has a helicopter view of the whole ecosystem and can try and bring that together is so important, that sits above departments, because each of those areas might fall within a different department. To have that overarching view, I think, in the view of, if I can speak on behalf of employers, is quite important for their understanding of how the education system works.
No, that's 100%, and I share that view perfectly. And thank you so much for, you, as you say, you go above and beyond to give freely of your time to try and help everyone here in Northern Ireland. And I think as a committee we should encourage the Minister to not only continue the Skills Council but actually expand its role and have that cross-cutting nature, because every debate we have in the Assembly, and even as late as last night, just sitting below one department doesn't work, because silo approaches just delay things and ping pong. But anyway, Kate.
Thank you, Chair. It's always so good to see you. Thank you. And you always have so much optimism, despite quite a stark environment in which you're working. Just to talk a little bit more about the apprenticeships, we obviously have very clear ideas of kind of how we could improve this. In the meantime, with what we've got now, what do you think the department can be doing more to support businesses, SMEs, to take apprenticeships on? I know that there are some organisations that are doing good work, but just a bit more of what you think the department could be doing.
I'll hand that to Barry first.
Thank you. It's really difficult. We are in our society. Most of the apprentices are employed by small to medium-sized enterprises. There are large companies out there, and some of the large companies do fantastic work. I know some large companies within the construction sector, they've got 20 apprentices, and they keep taking apprentices on every year, and they're big enough to be able to manage and accommodate that. However, they're in the minority. Most, and I can speak for the construction side, I think Mary would be able to talk for manufacturing. I think it's the same. It's a lot of small organisations that is the bulk of our sector. They find it hard. I was talking to a relatively small company week before last, and they were saying it costs them in the region of £30,000 odd to employ an apprentice, and that doesn't include some of the administrative and add-on and tax type costs. They just need help. They actually have apprentices. They would take on more, but as an organisation, to be profitable and survive, they can't take on any more apprentices than they have at the moment. So that support for smaller companies to help develop an apprentice. And we were talking earlier on about the system. The stats tell us that employers are saying that there's lots of vacancies out there and they can't get people with the right skills and knowledge. The problem small organisations have is that they want people that have the right skills and knowledge already. To bring on a new entrant, and I was going to say young person, but they're not always young people. They could be making a transition either from the justice system or from another sector, from one sector to another. They don't have that skills and knowledge at the start, and to help an individual develop those skills and knowledge is expensive, and it's not just the cost of the individual, it's a lost cost of people helping train that individual and get them up to speed. So industry will tell you that what they need is help. What they need is to help take that burden, that financial and resource burden, away from the small companies. And there are mechanisms that can do that. My organisation tried a shared apprenticeship scheme 8 years ago. It didn't work then, but I'm already talking to some organisations about bringing that back in, where small companies can dip in and out. Construction in particular is a very transient industry. So a young person in Coleraine might well get an apprenticeship, but the company they're working with might be there for 6 or 8 months and then move on. That young person might not have the resources and logistics to move to then work in Uri. And that happens very regularly. So if we can work out a system where an apprenticeship can be done within a geographic area, but with maybe multiple employers in the same area, then that would work. And I know that I can assure you that Derry London, Derry City Council and Belfast City Council are already talking to my organisation, CITB, about setting up a system. It's not easy. We spent a lot of money on it 8 years ago and it failed, but I like to think of that as a learning process, so I know some of the pitfalls that we might encounter in doing that.
Such an interesting point about the journey beyond that as well. So often the conversation around apprenticeships is getting people into them, but that's such a valuable point about what happens when maybe that initial 6 to 8 months is finished and what happens next.
Yeah,
sorry, you were going to say.
There's also, I'll hand to Mary in a minute, but there's also something I think this committee could do. There needs to be some examination of the shortage of skills development in different regions. You know, the Department of Education have launched teacher bursaries. We need to see the same in FE at times, particularly where there's a regional shortage. There's one region that's represented here today where there's a real shortage of courses in electrical engineering. Now, that shouldn't be allowed because there are large companies in that area that need electrical engineers. So, but those stats have and I've asked this question several times, those stats have never been produced to look at those regional shortage. And if we really believe in regional and regionality and serving them, we need to see what is short in particular areas.
Yeah, like Barry, we're hearing similar messages through manufacturing, the manufacturing industry, and we believe that if the apprenticeship model was done right, it could be the silver bullet for to address the imbalances around the skill shortages, but also to tackle the large number of economically inactive and also NEETs as well. You know, bringing those that are furthest removed from the labour force closer to the labour force. Speaking to colleagues in Mid-Ulster and Mega and also in the Northwest and GEMEX, there is a willingness from companies. There's no shortage of companies wanting to take on apprenticeships, but what we're hearing the key issues are really around the bureaucracy and the complexity of administering apprenticeships and the form filling. And as Barry said as well, many of those school leavers just aren't prepared for the world of work. So what we're proposing through the Skills Council is a pre-apprenticeship training model to bring those school leavers up to that level, to make them work ready, to give them you know, improve their communication skills, their problem solving skills, their creativity skills, and really make them better ready for the world of work. Employers also need to be better incentivised to take on apprenticeships. And if we look at, you know, during COVID, there were some financial incentives that employers were able to avail of that, and we know during that time that the level of apprenticeships did increase substantially. So we would be very much in favour of, you know, better incentives for employers.
Can I add?
Yes.
I think from my perspective, one of the quick wins that could be done quite right now is to look at the whole social value piece. A lot of the large public sector contracts has social value on it, which is 10 to 20%. And on the back of that, there's no reason why you couldn't drive the apprenticeships piece through that and even broaden it to apprenticeships and look at the NEETs piece in relation to that, or a gender apprenticeship piece, something that will really have a dramatic impact, but that gets companies bought in, and they have to buy in because they've won significant contracts from the public sector, so why shouldn't they be given back? And I think that's a really quick win. is to stipulate that as one of the social value items on all future contracts.
Yeah, such a good idea. And thank you for touching on the gender aspect of it, because I think that's an important one. I was going to ask about economic inactivity, but I know everyone's going to have loads of questions, so I'm going to ask about a topic that I often ask about, and that's on AI. A witness to the committee previously said that they weren't actually so worried about AI taking jobs, and the different views on this, but what they were more concerned about was that it weren't developed fast enough to fill the vacancies that we have in our economy. And I'm just curious about what you think about AI and the impact of AI on skills and the skills gap, which is so persistent in our economy.
This is something that has come up at a whole variety of council meetings, and we have a digital skills plan, but we need to have an AI plan. And I suppose one of our experts on this is Lorna, who represents a company that has huge experience in this, and Lorna has also liaised with people like Stephen Farry, who have been looking at strategies on AI. Many countries are ahead of us. They already have their strategies on AI. We are now behind, so we're already on the back foot. But yet we have a really burgeoning, successful IT companies here in Belfast in particular, and Northwest.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, certainly from a technology sector, but that spans across the work we do in all sectors. AI, in my view, won't necessarily get rid of jobs. They will redefine jobs. And as a consequence, your skills that's required for those roles will be redefined. And we will need to be very flexible and very proactive when it comes to really addressing what skills we will need in the future. But we need to do that right now. There's a lot of work going on around, so the University of Ulster, Queen's University, they've all done economic forums, economic policies around how you can drive economic growth through the use of AI and the adoption of AI, how we can be much more innovative and produce much more innovative services and products out of Northern Ireland using AI. But this is where the Skills Council really becomes important, because the underlying issue here is how do we address the AI skills and what's needed in the future to allow that to happen. And that's something that the Skills Council will have to hopefully get ownership of and be able to push forward with an action plan on it. I think that from that AI perspective, if we don't address it now, your economically inactive number will go up, your NEETs number will go up as a result as well. But my personal view is that AI could be used to address your needs and could be used to address your gender imbalance, because particularly from a tax sector perspective, you could look at flexible working models that allow and introduce of new roles through AI that allows people who today might not think they're employable will actually be employable, because the skills that they need are much more analytical maybe, or more social, or being able to bring a diverse perspective on a solution or an app or a document or whatever it might be. They're all skills that people in NEETs right now are very strong in, and I think that's where we need to look at how AI can drive that issue for us, and I believe it can.
It's I was at the ACON conference last week, and I thought it was really interesting, and a lot of what people were saying is actually, when you're looking at skills, it's not necessarily about being able to do software development. It's being able to critically think and ask the right question. And it's not, there's still going to be a human element in so much of this. I'm going to be setting up an all-party group on AI because I think there are a lot of concerns as well. Yeah. But also there's so much opportunity. We need to be having regular conversations about it.
And the software development role and software coding or software engineering role is a prime example of how AI has changed. Because people who wouldn't have had the ability to be a coder, like myself, could actually and will actually be using AI tools that will do that for them. Yeah. So the skill that I would bring to it now is an understanding of what the business solution or issue or challenge is, and how the system can address that. So I would be bringing that human perspective to it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be bringing my coding skills to it, and that's a prime example of how AI will change roles.
If I can add to that, just from the manufacturing perspective, we really need to have digital skills at the heart of our industrial strategy. Kathleen alluded to a study visit that I participated on last week to the Basque Country. It was led through Invest NI to look at innovation and clustering. And we were really blown away by the investment in technology and technical education right across the Basque Country. They have, in fact, 17 technical colleges right across the Basque Country, all of which were very well equipped with the latest digital technologies and robots. But more importantly was the access that they allowed industry and afforded to industry, and also lecturers. And it's a really important point that we will cover, I'm sure, as well, is around the skills mismatches and imbalances. Like what our companies are telling us, that the education and training, particularly in digitalisation, does lag behind. Where if lecturers were allowed to go perhaps into industry to learn, and vice versa, so that lecturers into industry piece will be very, very important. And in the Basque Country, it is part of a lecturer's role to go out into industry and also to attend the technical training centres to familiarise themselves with the latest digital tools and robotics tools. And I think that's a key, it's a very important area that we should focus on, and that investment in technology.
Kate, our conference, with the National Skills Council will focus jointly on green skills and AI, so the all-party group may wish to contribute.
Well, actually, the all-party group on skills, which I also chair, is doing an inquiry into green skills next as well, so definitely worthwhile. I'll leave it because I could talk about this all day. Thank you.
Delighted to have you back, Kate. Diana.
Thank you, and good morning. Thank you so much for coming in, and really, I'm really enthused and energised by the work you do, and it's so positive, and thank you for all the input. And just when you talk about green skills, and there's a new Peace Plus programme called GRASP coming from Southwest College and Enniskillen, and I'm wondering, going back to the motion on the skills development and the All-Ireland Talent Agency, how do you address that without duplication? Is it a signposting? Is it going to be if it's pursued, will it be a signposting function? How do you bring all those opportunities in together that avoids duplication?
I'll bring some of my fellow council members in a minute, but I attended a cross-border conference because 4 of the counties of Northern Ireland border with the Republic of Ireland just last month, and I suppose that movement of skills is already happening, but we need to do a lot more work. We don't need a plumber in Newry going to fit a boiler in Dundalk and a plumber in Dundalk having to come and sign off that work, which is the current situation. So we need a lot about smoothing skills on an All-Ireland basis. We've already had one All-Ireland apprenticeship, and that worked jointly because it was agreed between the 2 colleges. Yeah. But clearly there's 2 regulators here. It wouldn't be the same issue with portability of skills from here to London, but it would be from here to Lifford. And that is a real issue for us, particularly as many of the citizens that live here are working on a cross-border issue or cross-border nature. To have an All-Ireland talent agency, I think it is a great vision, but a lot of the building blocks need to come together. And one of those for me would be regulation. The regulation of qualifications north-south. There's already regulation of qualifications east-west, because all of the English skills groups normally work here, apart from the fact that we don't have T levels, for example, which is a real issue for us in vocational education. But there are a number of other building blocks across departments, and I'd have to say We need a few. We know that there's work going on already, so we need to highlight that. Atlantic University are working right across the northwest. We know that there's good relations happening between Belfast Met and Dundalk, but I'm a gardener and I grow hydrangeas, and wherever I plant the hydrangea, it flowers differently. So I'm always concerned when you take something that has been built somewhere else and plant it somewhere else, it may flower differently. It may have a different colour. So I would like to see an All-Ireland talent agency, an All-Islands talent agency working together on skills, but I'm aware that there are different laws, practices, taxation happening right across the border areas here. It would be easier to transfer from Switzerland to France than it would be from north to south here. And I think we need to do something about that. So there are a number of different, and I'm sure you're aware of the LEAF report on the issues of working cross-border here. I think we need to really tackle some of these, but we need to tackle them without looking at division. But the fact that skills are moving over the border either way currently, and we need to have something in place. It would be really useful for this economy to have an all-island talent agency, but we need to make sure that we direct that, not as an experiment, but we direct that really well with different departments. Any colleagues want to work?
Yeah, if I could come in, I think I kind of look at this in a couple of different ways. If you're looking at skills, and it doesn't matter whether it's craft level or higher level or degree level, the content of the courses that are taught are pretty much the same, not just north, south and east, west, but European and such like. And what I find is that it's the administration of skills that's the barrier, not the skills themselves. And Kathleen's example of a plumber is a really good one. And what we have to realise is that businesses in Northern Ireland are already doing this. Our businesses in Northern Ireland are working outside Northern Ireland every day of the week. And I don't mean just north, south and east, west. In Europe and in America, our manufacturing sector is a world-beating sector because we have the skills. And those skills are really sought after. If you go to some other countries, they really prize anyone that has a qualification from these islands, because they're seen as the highest quality. So we have that. So it's not the content of the skills; it's the administration around the delivery of those skills and the approval sectors system around those skills. I have absolutely no doubt that I would pitch anyone from Northern Ireland in any sector skills against anyone else's. And in fact, have a look at how well we do in the World Skills competitions, just to see that. So the skills themselves are comparable. It's the acceptability of skills, and certainly within the EU, there is an international agreement of looking at comparative skills. But we have some areas where there's a piece of work that needs done to kind of accept a skill, and that's the administration that has to be looked at, and maybe All Islands sort of skills group looking at that to make sure that it works more smoothly for companies is a really good thing, because the companies are already doing it. The administration around it is only catching up with practice. I know very few companies, certainly in Northern Ireland, that don't have either an east-west or a north-south element to their business just to survive. It's just an area of practicality, and the people are moving. I think it's beholding on us to make sure that happens in as seamless a way as possible.
Yeah, we one area that came to us recently, and that was railway workers. And there's a huge investment in railways across the whole island, and there's a need for skilled railway workers. No point bringing them from England. Didn't know this. 5-gauge railway in England, 4-gauge railway here. So the knowledge for improving our rails is jointly north and south, but there's no joint north-south qualification on railway workers. And yet we have improved our train services. As somebody who comes from Newry to Belfast all the time, we've improved that service unbelievably. And we're about to improve other railway lines as well. So there's a real need for us to cooperate to get those skills together. And it's not about, it's not a union issue because there's a real shortage of labour here. So unions are willing to work together, but we need to have joint qualifications.
Just to add to Kathleen's comments, there are huge opportunities in infrastructure in the south of Ireland, and also the Ryder Cup's coming there next year, so we really need to sort these issues out as a matter of urgency. But there's lots of really on the ground examples of where our companies here in Northern Ireland are missing out on huge contracts because there's no mutual recognition of those qualifications. And that's why through the Skills Council we are promoting a more joined up approach between the Department of Economy and SOLAS, which is the recognition qualification body in the south of Ireland, to map and to mutually recognise those qualifications that Kathleen has referred to.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, one more thing. And it's really just jumping. I wanted to take the opportunity to ask another question, but thank you for that. The data shows that Northern Ireland is behind in adult lifelong learning, and just wanted to explore your views on that, why those numbers in education and training in lifelong learning are falling, and what can be done to address that.
Very greatly big concern. I'm going to go to Lorna on this. In SETI, they look at both barriers for coming back into work, disability, etc.
Yeah, we have looked at the lifelong learning piece, and I think it's back again to the caring piece and the gender piece. A lot of people that you would like to attract back into that lifelong learning are actually caring at the stage in their life where they're having caring responsibilities, or indeed mental health or health issues as well. So if you look at the numbers of people that are off work or can't work because of their health, the same applies to your lifelong learning as well. I think we need to look at it in terms of what lifelong learning we can promote and inspire to allow people to look at maybe reskilling or upskilling again at that stage in their life.
It's also where people will go to get that information. I know great strides have been made with careers and careers education. We will look forward to having a careers portal for Northern Ireland, but we have no date for that yet. And I think that is a matter of urgency, the fact that we have that, because there needs to be a way of people knowing, if I want to go back into work, this is how I'm going to do it.
One of the things I do outside the day job is I'm involved in the Forum for Adult Learning, Northern Ireland Falney, who's part of the Learning Alliance with Open University and other bodies. And what's really, and it's an interesting, if I can just take 2 seconds to explain, I got involved in Falney because I was interested to know how people move towards learning and move towards work, because there is a thing within Northern Ireland that there is a reluctance to learn, and I wanted to know where that came from. And what I've seen there is that people are often, because of an experience somewhere in their younger years, they become wary of formal learning institutions, or scared in some cases of formal learning institutions and assessment. So the voluntary and community sector in terms of learning is doing really good work in bringing people back to learning. And what they're doing is that they're actually making people realise how they learn. They might not have learned the way that our schools are structured, and they have to then go back and realise how they learn and create that. And I think that within the world of work, voluntary community, the lifelong learning piece is really important. I perceive that a lot of people learn digital skills and AI skills, not in the workplace, but in the voluntary community sector. So they go out of the workplace and do a bit of learning, and it brings back to the workplace. So it goes back to this idea of learning being, lifelong learning being an ecosystem. And I think one of the things that, if I can put my Falney hat on, is that the voluntary community sector probably could do with a bit more support and coordination to link them more to formal learning as a route and an enhancement to formal learning.
Very much. Thank you, Jay.
David?
Thank you all for coming in. It's actually inspiring to hear the sort of stuff that's going on. We brought the motion on the kind of talent agency, and every party supported that, and I think it's the key to actually moving forward. You actually highlight another thing that does my absolute head in this place, is that everything is, we're talking about skills here, and it's Department of Economy, yet the Minister of Department of Economy isn't in control of all of skills and sitting in the PAC, and that came through, and then the justice or adult reoffending came through, and you're asking, in this case on skills, you're asking the Minister to do this, but yet some of this sits with other departments, and the ability for us to scrutinise that, even for yourselves, to communicate with another department, is a barrier that I think the reform needs to happen here. But I'm interested in what you are saying, actually, that Basque country. So we've gone and looked at somewhere else. What if we were to do something? What is the thing you would bring back? What's the learning quickly a couple of things that we should do here that would work?
Well, thank you for the question. So the Basque Country has really transformed itself from the 1980s, and the models that they have really embraced is around clustering models, clustering and innovation models, which has transformed their economy. They would actually say they have no skill shortages in the Basque Country, which again is a huge statement. We would love to be able to say that here as well. A model that we look closely at is the SkillNet Ireland model, where companies, what we're hearing from employers as well, that they would really want to take charge of their own training and have that employer-led training within their organisations. So a SkillNet type model where companies can learn from each other, that peer-to-peer learning, but also set their own direction in terms of training and that collaboration between companies. So it would be great if we were able to pilot a SkillNet model, a cross-border SkillNet model, or certainly through the new talent agency, that could be one of the priorities.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you for that. That's something I suppose we can take forward. We've debated it, everybody's agreed with it in the chamber. It's that of moving that forward. Also, one of the all-party groups that Kate's been talking about, I've been looking at setting up a new all-party group as well, focused on this all-island, kind of how we get that mobility and economic growth, not looking at the politics of it, looking at the actual betterment of ordinary people and creating barriers or removing barriers for business, because you highlight quite a bit of those with cross-border viewing of or how their qualifications are seen. But one of the other barriers I just want to pick out on is that Maths and English GCSE. If you don't have Maths and English, the barrier that we have created, and then you can't move forward. Is there anything? Have you looked at any of the kind of self-imposed barriers that we've created to how we would then address that and get those 25,000 people or some of those back into the...
Well, firstly, David, we were bowled over by the agreement in the Assembly from many of the members here on the need for a talent agency, and I actually did our heart for democracy good to hear that. But the idea of qualifications is one that was brought up in Council last week by 3 different members, and we have been exercised on this ever since. And it brings the fact that the departmental collaboration is good, but it needs to be better. Because as far as I know, the undermining of essential skills level 2 in literacy and numeracy qualifications was not consulted on beyond school principals. And as far as I know, the consultation went out in September, and only 10%, there was only 10% response to that. Now, if I got a 10% response, well, firstly, I would know never to put out a consultation out in September when schools are starting. But if I get 10% response, I think there was something. And if this qualification is a gateway qualification to employment, i.e. essential skills level 2, equivalent to a GCSE grade C or number 4 in English, in literacy and numeracy, then I would consult with employers and other departments. And as far as I am aware, no consultation was made. Now, according to the circular from the Department of Education, this qualification is still equal to a GCSE grade C, and therefore it should be acceptable by FE, and it is as far as I'm concerned. It is not always acceptable by HE, which means people who are returners, women returners, people who are upskilling, people who are reskilling, are denied entry to higher education because they don't have that GCSE in maths or English, or indeed back in the day, O-level maths or English if they are an older person seeking work. This is a particular issue because even though it hasn't been regraded for employment, if you say to a school, we're not, or an FE college, we're not going to count your level 2 in the league tables, which are against each other, the school's not going to do it. The college is not going to do it because they're going to say, we're going to put a teacher in there or a tutor in there to teach this. And, you know, we're not going to get any credit for doing this unless they have great integrity. And hats off to those principals and heads of colleges who still have that integrity to realise that this is a gateway qualification to employment. But it's extremely difficult to go back and do a full GCSE in maths, including some of the areas of mathematics which are never going to be relevant to your employment unless you're going into a STEM-related subject. So I think it's something that requires investigation. Why was level 2 essential skills undermined in league tables, but yet employers and Department for the Economy and other Department of Community were never consulted? Because this actually creates a barrier, because people are not going to get an essential skills course. Employers are going to think, okay, that's not going to longer done, so it's not going to be worth it, so therefore I am closing this gateway off. It's a huge issue, and I can't overestimate how huge it is, because I've had family members mentored people through essential skills when they've got a D or an E in their maths, and they've got onto that level 3 course, they've got into university, but now that barrier could well be closed. I mean, one hand obviously doesn't know what the other hand is doing here, and this is a huge issue.
I've had people in my office who, and that's been the barrier at O levels. Actually, I was using GCSE, but people without that qualification to be able to move forward. So tell me, so that what you're saying is the Department of Education have done this without, there's no consultation to yourselves, no consultation to anyone?
This consultation was done in September 2024. I have the letter given to me by a college principal. I only heard about it when it came up at the Skills Council last week. It is a real barrier, and I doubt that a minister who has come through a vocational route himself would actually sanction something like that, because I don't think that would happen. But it's a real issue to say it is still worth a C, but schools, colleges can't count this as a C. So clearly, if there's an issue with awarding or regulation, that issue in awarding or regulation should go back and be negotiated with an exam board. Yeah. And I have been on regulation committees in SIA. I sat on those to know that that happens sometimes if a qualification isn't seen to be suitable. But clearly, to downgrade a qualification on a league table and say it's still acceptable is... I'm trying to say a miscarriage of justice against every person who's trying to go on a skills career ladder in Northern Ireland.
Was that 25,000?
Yeah, that 25,000 is going to be added to.
Yeah, you're going to grow it
hugely, and not just 16 to 24. That figure of economically inactive will be added to it as well. But it's just a case of one policy has happened without actually thinking the impact that's going to have on the citizens here that really want to work.
Yeah, honestly, Kathleen, I feel your frustration on, but you've made the point. Yeah, I'll take it. Sorry.
Patrick?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to the presenters for your comments so far. I think as always, it's been really insightful, and it's been really useful to kind of hear your experience, and it definitely chimes with a lot of what we hear as well. I just want to declare two interests. Firstly, as our party spokesperson on skills, and secondly, as a member of the PAC as well. So, look, it's been really interesting conversation so far. Coming on at the latter end, a lot of the questions have already been asked. But I suppose 2 points that I did want to make were firstly around the higher level apprenticeships, which I think there's been huge success in and have opened a lot of avenues to people who may not have considered an apprenticeship beforehand. So I'm keen to get an understanding from yourselves, firstly, on those barriers that you see with those, if there's any things that can be tweaked or can be improved within that. But I certainly think that it's opened a lot more avenues to people. I'm hearing a lot of people locally who, we've met at any event in Derry, who have been doing ones in accountancies, a huge one, other avenues as well. And I think it gives an accessibility within the system that wasn't there to the same extent previously. So keen to get your impressions of those and how they can be further enhanced.
Patrick, I worked in North Belfast when the higher level apprenticeships come out, and I can say for the young people there it was a breath of fresh air, because it was them progressing without the idea of university debt. It was a great pathway. The pathway to that probably needs to be fixed, and we need that success in higher level apprenticeships to really translate into other areas as well. I think there are some waiting lists for higher level apprenticeships, so I think we need to really copy the Department of Education and find bursaries and ways of getting tutors into FE for higher level apprenticeships. But I think Lorna, probably Barry and Mary have experience of them firsthand.
Higher level we see a real growth in higher level apprenticeships. If I can talk about the construction trade, I know that Mary will say the same about manufacturing. And I think the reasons for it are twofold. And if I can be a bit personal about it, where I grew up in Glasgow, you'll have picked up I'm not from Northern Ireland.
You've been here longer.
I was a child who was never expected to go to university. That's just a fact. Family and socio-economic background, I wasn't going to university, and that was fine. So I went into an apprenticeship, and I did all right in O-levels. I didn't do too well in hires. My interests at that age were different. But then I went into the workplace, and I learned how I learn, and I'm a kinetic learner. So the process of knowledge linked with application of that knowledge worked for me. So I did ONC, HNC, and then I went on to do a degree in civil engineering, became a chartered civil engineer. Not to labour the point, but it was tortuous. I had to do that on my own. There wasn't a system there that supported me in doing that. I was very lucky that I had an employer and people within that company that supported me and encouraged me to do that. But it was self-starting all the time. We now have a system where it's a much more structured system where people can come into that and see that pathway right from the start and get through to a degree level qualification through an apprenticeship. There is also an economic factor to this, in that the cost of going straight from school to university is increasing, and people are more aware of the debt liabilities of that. So for young people who could go to university are now choosing to go through an apprenticeship route. And the employers that are taking on higher level apprenticeships also see huge benefits of this. Now, there is a place for the university route. I'm not saying that the university route is wrong. What I am saying is that depending on the individual and for the employer, both routes are valid, and you pick the route that suits you as an individual. Last week, the Construction Employers Federation Awards, we gave an award to the Apprentices of the Year, which is a young woman who's doing an apprenticeship. I've got to declare a conflict of interest here because she actually works for the same company as my wife. But she works for Farron's Construction. She's doing a higher level apprenticeship in civil engineering. She chose to do the higher level apprenticeship rather than the degree because she really valued that learning and the link with an employer. So I think we're seeing the growth of it for two reasons. One, out of necessity, in that there are people who don't see themselves either economically or socially suited to go into university. And we're seeing people who are maybe, and I would put myself in this, who aren't emotionally mature enough for university when they leave school, and that was I'm not sure I'm emotionally mature enough now to do it. But so it gives that option, and we are definitely seeing multiple growth. It's not just a percentage; it's multiple. It's 2, 3, 4 times over the last few years increase in people doing higher level apprenticeships. Again, go back to the phrase, the skills ecosystem. It is a huge and important part of our skills ecosystem.
Lorna? We, in our organisation, we kicked off our first apprenticeship programme here in NI. We brought in 9 young people, and I have to say I've been blown away by the fact that they just want to get involved. They've really, from day one, just become part of the company straight away. They're so keen and so keen to learn, but so keen to also give back because the company has given them that opportunity. I think, from my perspective, I know we do a lot of work in Software NI around the apprenticeships and how, as a member body, we can help drive our tech companies and our software companies to take on more apprenticeships and how we support them to do that. But I think, for me, the 3 things that needs to happen to make apprenticeships really successful in this country is the first is that we promote the higher level apprenticeships from day one, the moment that they walked through the secondary school door, because we want to build them the possibility and the options there and then, that this isn't about going to university, and if you don't go to university you're a failure. We need to start promoting apprenticeships from day one as an avenue for them to focus on. The second is that we need to encourage more companies, and we've spoken about that earlier around how we get them to bring in more apprenticeships. But as Kathleen also said, we also need to make sure that the FE colleges and the higher education are fit to be able to deliver these apprenticeships as well.
Yeah. Just a few points from me as well. Through Manufacture Northern Ireland, we're very keen to promote higher level apprenticeships, and we've done a number of outreach campaigns to schools, and particularly it's encouraging to see more grammar schools now promoting higher level apprenticeships. A school, St Coleman's College in Uri this week has over 20 employers coming to showcase the opportunities in higher level apprenticeships, which is really, really encouraging. So we will continue to do more in that regard to promote those at that level. You'll also be aware, Padraig, around the mega higher level apprenticeship at the McGee campus, which is hugely successful. We would say that it probably needs more funding. There needs to be more students funded to participate in that higher level apprenticeship. But also it's really important to encourage those industry placements and to link those higher level apprenticeship placements to real life challenges within industry, particularly in innovation and working in the new area of digital technology. So I think that industry placement is really, really important during the higher level apprenticeship. And then just a final point, and I know it's probably not directly related to your question, but we do welcome the new teacher STEM bursary.
Yep.
of £17,000, and what we would like to see as well, that teachers who are studying in those STEM subjects also have the opportunity to, or it could be a mandatory part of that, to go out and spend some time in an industry as well, to take those learnings back into their teaching and into the schools. Sorry, just had to get that little point.
I think that's a really important one, and it probably goes to the point in terms of the collaboration as well, because once they become qualified, then in terms of going into the industry, it'll be economy rather than education. Sorry, Patrick, you continue, sir.
Thanks for that. So there were quite a few things there that I wanted to pick up on, and I suppose the first one was the shift in grammar schools, which you had mentioned. I think that is really important, and it shows that broader shift. But it's something as well that I suppose we have discussed numerous times here. The fact that the per pupil funding model for sixth forms inhibits schools from doing that to the extent that they might want, and actually compels schools to keep as many students as they can. So that is something that we would like to change, and I would like to kind of get a sense from yourselves of your view on that. The second point that I wanted to make was around insurance costs. It's something we're picking up a lot in terms of particularly around apprenticeships. So that becomes increasingly pertinent when you move to communities like our own in the northwest, where students might come from Donegal to study in Derry or vice versa, and in other regions of the north as well. So I suppose my 2 points on this were to see around insurance, kind of what you're picking up on that, and whether or not your perception is that that's a significant issue for industry. That's certainly what we're hearing. And secondly, around the per pupil funding model as well. And thanks for your.
We're hearing insurance, but we're also hearing paperwork, particularly for small, medium-sized companies. And I think we do need a drive on getting people into apprenticeships at all levels, not just level 3. Level 3 is an outstanding success, and we need people who are skilled in level 3, 4, 5. But to get them there, we need level 2. And we have endless examples right round the country that tell us that young people, particularly if they don't have a relative in that skills area, cannot get a placement. Now, clearly we need to change that, particularly for cities. You know, a Belfast person wanting to study bricklaying who has nobody else ever in bricklaying, that is a difficulty for us. So we need to work with employers' bodies to make sure that there is sponsorship, even mentorship in that. It has become a real issue. We also want to advocate more, particularly for Northwest issue, because they have really good collaborative systems with Letterkenny and Donegal, to have a number of All-Ireland apprenticeships where people and skills will be acceptable either side of the border, just as happens on the rest of Europe. That is an issue. Anybody else? There was another issue there. Was there another, Patrick? What was the other issue we haven't addressed?
Our people funding model at sixth form.
Funding.
The funding models for
sixth form per pupil.
Oh, for sixth form per pupil. This is a chestnut where FE seems to be caught in between HE as well, and it gets students poached from it either way. Clearly there needs to be more of integrity of offer, and I think there would be a more of integrity of offer into our sixth forms if there was better translation of labour market information into schools, etc. The last formal training of a careers teacher was 1997. I remember because I got trained then. There has been no official training of careers teachers in schools since that. Now, and there's no formal mechanism for labour market information to be translated into schools. And I don't feel any of the 500 post-primary principals in Northern Ireland have a lack of integrity. If they knew what was happening, they would be directing their young people into level 3 qualifications sooner. But the idea that people are keeping people on to satisfy budgets, I'm not sure that's happening. But I think a stronger message in tying in post-primary and FE needs to happen, Padre. And particularly in the Northwest is strong schools, but still has a lot of skills issues.
Thank you. And as a former principal, you can speak with authority on that, Gary.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. And a lot of questions have been answered, so I'm just going to ask just a quick one. Well, it mightn't be quick in terms of the answer because it's quite. I share your concern about the essential skills piece because, like others, I've been sort of contacted, particularly from somebody who actually was deregistered in the education system and wanted to get back in, and this was a pathway which was closed off to them. So one of your opening statements was around your key priorities was around collaboration. So there were 3 senior officials who currently sit in your council, and didn't obviously, none of them knew, or certainly none of them informed you that this particular change was going to be coming down the line since September, or the consultation in September. I suppose for me, looking at the entire system of skills, careers, apprenticeships, it still seems very much disjointed. Are there any practical examples, certainly within the council, that you can point to where there have been material, practical changes made in collaboration across departments? Is there any practical examples of that?
I think there are good relationships across departments, and I think probably one of the successful areas, even though it's probably not moving as fast as I would like, is careers. There's a really good strategy on careers that has been published jointly, and I think moving forward that would be really useful to have, and the people work well together on departments. But I think, maybe it's a question of person power or whatever, but it maybe doesn't move in the direction at the speed we would like to see it as a council, because employers want it yesterday. But policy sometimes has to catch up. And I suppose one of the issues for us is we know what skills are coming down the track, in the future. We know what skills are now in the back, and we are aware that HE in particular have research and development sites, but there's no funding for research and development on what's coming down the track in further education, and we need to be preparing ourselves for the future, because sometimes we build it and it will come. So the careers will be a success. The relationships are there, and we don't underestimate the importance of a relationship and working together. We saw it last week from the people in this room on the passing of the motion in the Assembly, and we're seeing it at Council, but we need to see that translated into more action.
I'd also add the Job Start programme, which is delivered by the Department of Communities, has been very, very effective, and it's we're delighted to see that that's been reactivated just this week. From our perspective and our employers, there was a very high uptake of placements with the Job Start. It allowed employers to work with the employee to get them more work ready and to, I suppose, de-risk that process of onboarding an employee. I'd also like to mention the Assured Skills Academies, which I think is an excellent model. However, there are, in terms of that annual budget, it's difficult for FE and companies to plan ahead. So we do think that needs to be continued and properly resourced. That gives employers a great opportunity to have that pre-employment training as well in their specific sectors, and with that particular skill set that's tailored to meet their needs.
Well, thanks for that, and obviously commend the work that you're doing. That was no reflection in terms of you're bringing people together. I just want to make sure that it's been listened to, and that decisions aren't made and then you find out afterwards.
I can assure you we challenge.
Good. No. And just a final point: the joint conference that's coming up. In terms of any particular outcomes you want to see from that, obviously it's about building relationships, but are there any particular?
I think from that joint conference, we want to focus firstly on green skills and AI, but then from that conference we want to see a number of issues taken forward, and it probably would support an All-Ireland talent agency, but we will take baby steps because we want everybody to work together across departments in that. but we want to, both the chair of the National Skills Council and myself and the other members of the two councils want to identify a number of barriers, which from that we can then proceed on jointly making sure are broken down to make sure that there's better movement, better portability of skills across the island, because it makes sense.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
Jonathan?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much. It's been very informative. I think we all recognise that there are many different routes to a successful career, and that doesn't delegitimise any other, not one above and beyond. There's appropriate skill pathways that young people, and indeed others older, can now go down to have a successful career. I think we have to recognise that progress has happened, albeit not at the speed that we all would like, and I think that's always the problem when it comes, and I've watched this through my own time at school and watching employers struggle with the changing needs of their workplace. I actually thought it was fascinating to hear the Prime Minister talk in his conference to scrap the 50% university target to make it a 2/3 and including apprenticeship gold standard apprenticeships, etc. I think the rhetoric now and clamour from government is starting to reflect something that's been happening in industry for years, but it's about changing the perception of what an apprenticeship means. I think for many years, parents that wanted the best for their children were fed a diet of that university was the only real way to break through that barrier, and through no fault of them, they charged down that route. And I seen people that, even if they didn't get the required grades to do the particular course that they want, they almost felt pressurised to go into clearing to get some form of degree, because that's what society told them would stand them the best chance, and it wasn't. So I'm very, very keen to ensure that the apprenticeship route is something that we can really help progress. So with that in mind, Mary, you mentioned, I thought it was very interesting, about what do employers say is the main challenges for them in relation to apprenticeships. The majority of people that I talk to from an employer's perspective, and I think it's largely from the construction sector but also the manufacturing small businesses, that it's about retention. They feel gutted that they put their time and effort into bringing young people through training programs and apprenticeships, and the stickability is not there in the same way that it was 20 years ago, when somebody valued the opportunity that was presented to them, but ultimately now it's not the same stickability. Is there any way that we can address that? You mentioned the pre-apprenticeship training. I forget the exact terminology. Yeah. How do you target that to make sure that you can address an issue like stickability?
I know it's a really important point that you raise. Firstly, I would say that the pace of technological change now is incredible, and trying to keep pace with that and aligning industry needs with what education is delivering is a huge challenge, which isn't going to be solved overnight. And again, referring back to the study visit that I went on last week to the Basque Country, it was that alignment and that communication between industry and academia that's really important, and government, so that triple helix approach, that communication is flowing, that market intelligence is flowing, so that education is able to keep pace with the demands and needs of industry. What that model is also based on is a 60% university, 40% vocational training model, and here we should try to aspire to more of that vocational training, and not just putting bums on seats for the sake of it, but making sure that those courses are delivered by experts who have trained in industry, that there's enough flexibility and inclusiveness built into those learning pathways, that they're short courses, they're not long courses, that they're flexible, that they are modular as well, and also delivered even online for those that are maybe remotely based as well. And also then, to answer your question in terms of what employers are telling us, that school leavers just aren't prepared for the world of work. So our pre-apprenticeship model would offer that type of training to make them more prepared for that world of work, and giving them softer skills that we know that are going to be needed, that are already needed to use the latest technology, and those critical creativity and problem solving skills, which often aren't included within the apprenticeship frameworks. What I'd also say is that there's a lot of great work going on in the industry, where industry is working very closely with the sectoral partnership to refresh and update those apprenticeship frameworks to align them closer with industry. So there's a lot of great work going on, probably just needed to happen at a faster pace.
Do you think that whilst teachers are trying their best, do you think that because they come from a time of the older model, and I include myself in this, that the focus on attainment towards university still dominates that space and prevents a real breakthrough in young people being motivated and driven towards apprenticeships because they regard them, in many cases actually, they produce greater results in terms of what the financial dividend is with no debt? Do you sense there's still a barrier there, and how can we break that down?
Yes, I agree. There's a lot, and in fact in manufacturing, a lot of the CEOs of our companies have come through the apprenticeship route. So within manufacturing itself, it's deeply valued. I suppose when you go out into schools, they're inspired by role models. What we do in manufacturing, and I particularly, is try to inspire females into manufacturing, because there is quite a big gender gap there. So it's going out and creating those role models to school children to bring that closer to them, to introduce the world of manufacturing to them. And I know Barry and construction, it would be similar, creating the role models that they can aspire to and they can relate to.
I know we're tight for time, so I just have 2 questions remaining. So Kathleen, you talked about skills gaps in FE colleges. You mentioned some of the areas that may be in the room. Are you in a position to tell us what areas they are that you're seeing that really manifest itself? And what's the problem? Is the problem the conditions in the FE colleges for those that want to take those routes to upskill our young people, or is there something particular that could change, that could address that issue?
Facilities in FE colleges are great. I mean, if I wasn't here, I'd be at the opening of the Ballymena campus today. I mean, you go to the mall, they have the most fantastic facilities. There are shortages of tutors, and there are shortages of tutors in different areas. Some areas have got better FE coverage over their council areas, like, ABC have really good coverage of FE. Other areas maybe don't have, and particularly in the west, maybe don't have as much coverage, and I'm not including Northwest in this, but there's a huge area down from Strabane right down to I suppose Rosslea, that their coverage can be patchy where there are big companies there, and maybe there's not the same strategic alignment of skills, even though they're brilliant colleges, but finding it difficult to get tutors.
So that would large, because I agree with you. When I look physically at the infrastructure and I compare it to our educational estate, I'm like, well, it's a no-brainer where the investment has been. Like they're fantastic environments. This committee's visited some of them. So it must be down to what terms and conditions are being provided that enable people to feel that empowered, that they want to go into FE colleges to teach these young people of the future. Would that be a fair assessment?
Well, you could earn 1,000 to 2,000 a week on a site. You'll not earn that in a month in a college. So there's a real issue with lecturers and tutors' pay, and there's a real need. And I know if I can point to Southwest, and Celine, she's done a lot of work at bringing people in to be tutors, to train them. There needs to be that right across, and we need to examine where the skills are short and where there are huge waiting lists for apprenticeships. We do need to train. I was between 2 employers last week, and one was blaming the other on stealing their talent after they had trained them. And one said, there's no point training anybody in my organisation because they're just going to be stolen by somebody else. And the other employer said to them, imagine you kept them, you didn't train them, and they stayed.
Finally, AI, and I actually always like Kate. This is a topic that fascinates me, and notwithstanding, you know, some of the challenges and guardrails that need to be in place, I see huge opportunity. I actually liked what Lorna had said in terms of it's redefining the workplace rather than replacing it.
Yes.
Because I see it as a smarter workplace for all, and actually that should, in a sense, embolden people to go into careers and areas of employment that they never ever dreamed or imagined. It actually has the ability to lift people up who have struggled with the traditional forms of education. One of you mentioned, it was either Kathleen or Lorna, talked about an AI plan and how you felt that Northern Ireland was behind when you look at other places. Behind in what way? Like, what would be the flashing light that would say that we need to get a grip of this very quick?
I think that we all recognise that AI has the potential to drive our economy. Okay, it has the potential to address issues like needs and the economic inactive. Okay, because it will drive opportunity for them. But there is no plan on how to get us there. There is no plan on how we get ahead of the curve. AI is changing on a daily basis. Our skills will continue to change on an annual basis, probably biannual, okay, and quarterly even. There is no plan that says what do we need to be doing in our primary schools today that will enable our economic growth to continue in 10, 15 years' time. And that's the piece that we need to get ahead of. We could sit down right now and create a plan for what we need to do in our FE and HE and in our companies to help drive that economic growth. But that won't address the fact that AI is constantly changing, and we need to be starting at the primary school stage, because the people coming out of our primary schools into secondary and out then, those are the people who will really be in an AI world.
Some countries have plans, and if the committee would like, we will forward some of what we feel is the better plans to you, because some of them already have over the last 12 months submitted plans. We tend to just have plans on generative AI and how we should be fearful of it. But you know, we have to be fearful, but we have to move with it.
We just add as well, very quickly, we do have a productivity challenge. We lag away behind our UK counterparts and European counterparts, so AI to solve that productivity challenge is going to be very, very key.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. On behalf of the committee, can I thank each and every one of you for your work and dedication, and we look forward to your continued role and hopeful expansion in the months ahead. So thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you for giving us opportunity.
Okay, Peter.
Members, content then will write to the Northern Ireland Skills Council, just asking them to forward their AI plan for other jurisdictions. So members will recall, I think we may have been told that there is an AI strategy in the pipeline for Northern Ireland. I think, yep, so it's not too far away. Also, is the committee then also to content to write to the Minister for Education just about the issue that was raised about essential skills, the level 2, and what seems to be a change to the related performance points, just to see what the reasoning is, what that's about. That's agreed, Chairperson.
Members also content we try and find out where our skills action plan is that was due to be published last month, and also what the Minister views as her long-term ambition/vision for the Skills Council.
And just, they had said they'd really like to see the numbers, the shortage of skills in different regions as well, so if the department has that.
Skill shortages by sub-region. Yeah, I think you are working on that, but okay, yeah, we'll ask the question. But just since the member was off at the time, I was chatting to the people that do the skills barometer. Yeah, they're doing a sub-regional version of that, which should be available around Christmas, which they said they'd come and brief us about. But we'll write to the department.
Members content? Yep. Okay. Item 8, members, is a copy of the end of session report covering the period February 24 to August 25. Are members content to approve?
Yep.
Can I, on behalf of the committee, thank the committee team for the work on this. It has been a very good report. We wouldn't have got through half the stuff we have if it wasn't for your work, so thank you very much indeed. Item 9, members, is the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Bill Committee report. So the UK Government intends to legislate in respect of the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Bill, Revenue Certainty Mechanism Bill, the SAF Bill. The bill provision will touch on devolved matters. The UK Government is therefore seeking the consent of the Assembly to legislate on this matter. The Minister has laid a memorandum asking the Assembly to approve legislative consent. A related motion is likely to be debated later in this month. Officials have previously briefed the committee on the 24th of September. Standing orders require the committee to publish a report. There is a draft report at page 304 and a copy of the LCM at page 310. Members content to approve?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, correspondence, members, starting at page 317. So item 2, 3 and 4 are all for noting. Members content with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Item 5 is a departmental response in respect of Windsor Framework EU tariffs, aluminium sheet raw materials. Are the committee content to forward the correspondence back to the Democratic Scrutiny Committee and the Steelwork Company? Okay, thank you. Items 6, 7 and 8 are all for noting. And members content? Okay, thank you. Item 9 is a response in respect to the call for evidence for the Insolvency Amendment Bill for the Bar Council of Northern Ireland. Is the committee content to publish the response on the committee's web page, seeking a briefing from the Law Society, and to forward the correspondence to the department for comment?
Yep.
Thank you. Item 10 is a response in respect of our call for evidence on the same bill from the Law Society. Is the committee content to publish the response on the web page, seeking a briefing from the Law Society, and forward to the department for comment?
Sorry, members, yes, I know it was my fault. I've written incorrectly in the chair's brief. So the first one was actually the Bar Council.
Yeah.
So we content to have a briefing session from Bar Council and Law Society.
Yep.
That's agreed, members.
Okay, perfect. Item 11, members, is a request from the BITES project to brief the committee on digital infrastructure and cyber security risks in the community and voluntary sector. Members content to note at this stage?
Yeah.
Thank you. Item 12, members are asked to consider an invitation to the committee members to visit Seagate Technologies in the Northwest. Members content that when we visit the Northwest next year that this can be added to it? Okay, thank you.
Onto our list.
Yeah. Item 13, members are asked to consider an invitation. Are members content that we attend dairy permitting?
Yeah.
Thank you. Item 14 is at the back of the table packed, and members are asked to consider an invitation from Youth Action Northern Ireland. Members content to advise themselves if they're going to attend.
Yeah.
Okay. Forward work plan, Peter.
So members, briefly then, the Insolvency Bill, we're coming to a conclusion.
Sorry.
Not that.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Sorry.
No, you're 100%. It was just to say I have to go.
No problem at all. Thank you. See you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Sorry. So Insolvency Bill coming to a conclusion. Law Society will come as you've just agreed, but they want to come at 9:30 on the 15th of October. The Insolvency Practitioners Association, they'll come on the 22nd of October, but they want to come at 9:15. So I'm sorry, members. Look, I'm against it, but at the same time, it's really good to hear from what are experts.
Yeah.
I'm also hoping to get R3, who are another insolvency practitioner group, maybe on the 5th of November at a more acceptable time. So that's basically all I have, members. So if you're content with the Forward Road programme as amended.
Then, any other business members? No.
Members, sorry, just a very quick, beg your pardon, Chairperson, I should have said this to you in advance. The committee exchanged some correspondence with the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland all about car registrations. And, members cautiously welcomed, but at the same time, they don't think this is resolved just yet. But my colleagues that produced the EU Affairs newsletter have asked if they can just put something out about it. So if members are content for me to share that correspondence with them. Jolly good. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, with that then, members, the committee will now adjourn, and we'll be back here Wednesday the 15th of November at 9:30 a.m. Thank you very much.
Committee Room 30. Sound. Committee Room 30. Sound. Committee Room 30. Sound. Committee Room 30. Sound. Committee Room 30. signed. Committee Room 30, 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 signed.